Hello everybody and welcome to episode 202 of the Warhammer podcast, known across the internet and lands beyond our comprehension as Lookout Sir. My name's Dan and I'm introducing good old Phil. How are you doing, Phil? Can you explain to the people why we are not reviewing Codex Astra Militarum / Imperial Guard this time around?
Well, we busied ourselves by going away to Warhammer World for a doubles event of Warhammer 40k. So we've prioritised that this week, and hopefully, to not disappoint the Astra Militarum players, we will be reviewing that codex in the next episode.
I mean, we say that now. We could well lie about it, as we have done this time around.
Well, I mean, it just gets to the point where it's an ongoing joke, right? So it's the funnier the longer we leave it.
Now, here's the question, Phil. The Emperor's Children book is actually releasing... when is it releasing? It's releasing...
pre-order last
Saturday.
week, yeah, so we've got a week to go.
There you go. So it's releasing a week Saturday. There's a chance we could just do Emperor's Children next if you wanted.
That is true. That might be funny. Yeah.
Exactly. That could be funny. We won't do that, though, because we've got lots of opinions on the Guard book that we want to actually share with you. It's an interesting one, I would say. Teasy. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, on the whole, I've actually been quite... It's funny because... what will be really interesting about this review is I've had lots of opportunities to read it, and I've actually played against it, which is interesting. So yeah, you start to get a feel for what they're doing. So hopefully it will be a very insightful review for a change of pace. Wouldn't that be nice?
No, exactly. Informed and well researched.
Yeah. Well, exactly. As all of our podcast episodes are, obviously. But on this occasion, Phil, what are we talking about?
What we've already mentioned, we are talking about Warhammer World 40k doubles weekend. Caveat, we recorded it on the way back so road trip vibe episode is the best way to describe it. Hopefully the audio's okay. Apologise if it's not. I had a cold as well, so my voice is still gone, to be honest. Dan also now has a cold.
And you're basically whispering right now as well, Phil, aren't you? Because you're trying to keep the noise down.
Well, my mic's further away, but also I'm trying to use my indoor voice and not my podcast voice, which I've been told is different.
There it is. Weird to think that we get a different version of you here on Lookout Sir.
Exactly, you get the fun one.
The fun one. This is me, my dour self. Anyway, yes, so that's all of that. But before we get to it, we have, of course, a 5-star review.
Peter!
Oh, hello,
What are
Dad.
you doing in here, son?
Oh, I'm
What
just...
have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time, I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh, man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of a award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Lookout Sir podcast, which right now, it's time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to with there, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
Phil, I won't bore you by asking you to guess the location because I'll be honest, it's the same one as it's been the last few weeks because I have yet to invest the time, effort and energy in finding where other reviews may be.
Does that mean it's Apple Podcast UK?
It is,
yeah.
I got it
Apple
right. Podcast of Great Britain. There you go. Woo! It is a win for you. We need to do something about this because I need to solve this because Dan, I think there's nothing.
You of all people love an Excel spreadsheet, so I don't know why you just don't track them.
I know, but it's so it's like a
It's too much effort.
It's just, well, it's not too much effort. It's just having the headspace. I am actually on holiday next week, and I don't have anything especially planned for it. I'm just not working for a week. I'm making the most of the fact that I take 4 days of holiday, but it translates into a consistent, what would that be? It's like 3 plus, so it's like 10 days off in return for 4 days of holiday.
Okay.
It's good economy. But yeah, I'm mostly on just working on things around the house, and decompressing. I've had a lot of crazy things go on at the start of 2025. It's been a bit of a hectic one for me. I won't get into it all again, but if you know, you know. So yeah, I've been dealing with all that, and I'm looking forward to sitting in the garden and roasting on the ground or something. That'd be nice.
On the barbecue, just cook yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, the point is with that is that could give me the opportunity I so sorely need to put the work in and figure out where our reviews are and what we're doing about that. But for now we're going to do Apple Podcasts of Great Britain. Comes via a lovely chap, I can only presume, called Puggy Bros 1234. So Puggy Bros 1234 says, "Hello, wave emoji, 5 stars," which, as everybody knows by now, is of course a prerequisite of appearing here in the 5-star review segment. And if you would like to leave us a 5-star review and you wanted to do so on Apple Podcasts in Great Britain, there's seemingly an increased set of odds that we would actually get around to reading it quite soon, because it's not too far between Puggy Bros and the last of the 5-star reviews here on Apple Podcasts of Great Britain. And obviously as well, if you have left us a 5-star review somewhere, more obscure than Apple Podcasts of Great Britain or say US, let me know. Please reach out to me on my Instagram. The description, or rather the link to it is in the description, or you can reach out to Phil. Let us know it's there, because obviously we want to shout you out and share our appreciation for your 5-star review. We really love and appreciate it. So, do us a favor and try and make it easy to discover where you've put them, because we want to shout you out and we want to shower you with praise. You just got to help us do it, because it's more complicated at the moment than it used to be. Isn't that right, Phil?
Also, I'm told.
So he's told. What else do we have, Phil?
We've got our usual Patreon supporters that we love dearly. And we did some, 200th episode content for them. I feel like we still haven't met up yet together to do a little retro battle report, which is the other thing that we wanted to do. So maybe that will happen over the coming weeks. If Dan invites me round to be his friend in real life and not just online. And
Phil, my establishment is always open to you. You need only,
turn up,
walk through the door.
Okay. It's difficult to do when no one answers your doorbell.
Well, that's fair, but you see, the trick there is you have my phone number, and
you don't answer that either.
Well, that is also true. But if you try all those things in tandem,
and eventually your lovely
out.
wife opens the door.
Well, exactly. That's the real trick. You've got my, if you've got my wife's phone number, you're basically sorted.
I don't actually know, so that'll be the problem.
No.
Anyway, so we have Patreon, we have merch. And the general love and support of you guys, and the comments, the thumbs ups on YouTube, and our eternal gratitude.
Indeed, there we go. It's quite interesting hearing you do that without your kind of podcast voice, as it were. As again, the subdued version of it kind of took on more of a kind of eerie kind of quality than usual. But the point is clear. Love the patrons. Thanks very much for everyone of you who are supporting us there. And if you'd like to, please do. And yeah, there is merchandise. It's all in the description. That's us done shilling. Hello, wave emoji, says Puggy Bros 1234, 5 stars. Your show always gets me in the mood to paint Warhammer. There we go. A beautiful 5-star review from what I can only assume is a beautiful human being. Thank you so much for taking the time to send us that 5-star review. The wave emoji is greatly appreciated, as was the succinct language that essentially asserts that we enable you to better hobby, which is a great thing to hear because that's what we aspire to do. We're here to help you as you battle through your grey pile of shame. And to elaborate on that, it can only be Phil.
Puggy Bros 1234, thank you very much for your kind and simple and succinct words. We're glad we get you in the hobby mood. Whenever someone says that they enjoy painting, not us, to us, I guess, we'd love to see what you do. You can leave us your Instagram handle if you have one, and we will review it as part of the outro show. Or feel free to just, reach out to us via social medias and show us your pictures. Don't think we don't care. We would love to see, painted miniatures, of course, not just, random pictures of pets. Actually, that's okay. I don't mind pets, but mostly painted miniatures.
There you go. I'm glad, Phil, that you didn't say what you were almost certainly thinking you were going to say.
I couldn't hazard a guess as to what you were referring to.
No, absolutely. You're so innocent and pure, like a church mouse.
Exactly. This is PG rated through and through.
Absolutely. Right, well, there we go. Transitional noise. Hey everyone, we are travelling home from the Warhammer World 40k doubles event. That being a Warhammer 40,000 Throne of Skulls, which is, Phil, what exactly?
It is a prerequisite for being on the podcast. No,
the patter.
It is the more casual form of tournament at Warhammer World. Historically, Throne of Skulls was the try-hard competitive version, but then they switched it around at some point.
They did.
So yes, this was the doubles format. Interestingly, they allowed Legends units, which they have historically never done, and I have always complained about. So that was good, but we only discovered that on the drive up.
That was true.
So it didn't actually affect our list building whatsoever.
No.
And it's 1,000 points each. Usual sort of doubles rules, like you share abilities if you're a similar faction.
Yeah, so if you're both Space Marines, your O for moment
is
shared. You don't have two O for moments. Unless, of course, you take Bobby G, but that's just Bobby G's thing.
And then you share CP.
Yes.
I think there was a rule of 2 for this event where you can only have 2 of the same data sheet and you can't share the same data sheet. There was definitely that one.
Yeah, it was like a 2-4 thing.
Maybe rule of 2 wasn't in there.
No, I think it was. But I think it's just the standard, because I think you're basically being asked to build 2,000 point lists that come together to form the whole. And I'm fairly sure the rule of 2 is a 1,000 point stipulation.
Possibly.
Whatever the case. That may or may not have been a rule. But what was definitely a rule was the whole, you couldn't basically have the same faction, so both me and Phil couldn't play Ultramarines, for example. Mm-hmm. But if we did both play Ultramarines, which we couldn't do, but if we did play Ultramarines and Blood Angels, we couldn't both take Intercessors. We couldn't both take Infiltrators. We couldn't both take Reavers. We basically could only take one of those data sheets between the two of us. That was a rule.
True, but like Richard and Spike, who are our buddies that also came with us, they took double Space Marines, because one was Dark Angels and one was generic Space Marines. So they got a mixture of generic Terminators and Dark Angel specific Deathwing Terminators. So if you have slightly different named data sheets, you can get away and sort of double up on the same thing, but technically they're different. So that's how you can do that.
Did you see that list that was Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights?
I did.
It was Imperial Knight War Dogs partnered with,
the Armigers and Helverins.
Yeah. Armigers and Helverins partnered with Chaos War Dog variants.
Yes, I did see that. No, they're quite scary.
That was a terrifying list. I'm glad we didn't do well enough that we had to deal with that nonsense, because that would have been a bloodbath.
That is true. And also the other thing to note with Throne of Skulls, which we've probably mentioned enough times if you've listened to this podcast enough, that Throne of Skulls is a mixture of your tournament scores, your wins, your losses, and your draws, plus favourite game votes and favourite army votes, and each one of those is the equivalent of winning the game. So it's very heavily weighted towards those. In fact, literally more than winning the games itself.
Yeah, 'cause winning a game is worth 3 points. Getting a favourite army vote and getting a favourite game vote is worth 3 points each.
So you can get 6 points alone per game from those, in addition to 3 from winning.
Yeah, the votes essentially count for more than the actual victories.
Yes, because your potential that you could get, because each team gets to vote for 2 other teams for their favourite game and favourite army vote. So in theory, each person gets their own vote.
Yeah.
So you could, but you can't obviously double up. You can't vote for one team twice to have favourite army votes, but you could give them one favourite army and one favourite game vote, which is what we did in a couple of our in one of our games. We gave them both.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, no, it was. It's always an interesting format. I think the thing is, though, what I find interesting about Throne of Skulls is because it does all boil down to this actual popularity contest. The actual overall victory is determined more by those soft scores, as some of the more competitive players like to refer to them as, than the actual kind of game performance. But your soft scores are very heavily influenced by your game performance because players like to win. So it creates this strange asymmetry where essentially on one side you have the fact that winning the game isn't actually that important in terms of the overall points, although it does obviously help to win. However, the players you're playing against put more stock into the win than they do other factors when deciding whether they want to give a favourite game or, the favourite army is the favourite army. You don't really tend to get too many variables.
No, but what you do tend to find is if you go to this event, you might win, because there is a best general award, which I noticed today they rushed through very quickly because it is not of importance for the event team, because that's not the main prize. The main prize is the sort of first, second, third, which is the overall sort of soft score combination, as Dan put it.
Yeah.
But you do tend to find the person that maybe won all 5 of their games are also the people that end up with 0 votes and 0 favourite game votes, because they're very much more try-hard focused, let's politely say.
Yeah.
But in which case they tend not to put much effort into their armies, so they're not getting the favourite army votes, and they're winning all their games and normally smashing their opponent.
Yes.
And in turn, they're not getting any favourite game votes, because obviously, and as Richard always says, and we've said it before, if you don't win favourite army votes, if you don't win favourite game votes, don't be disheartened, because quite often, you've got to win that one vote off of someone who's played 4 other people. So chances are you're not always going to be someone's favourite vote. Basically, it's very hard to get favourite game votes off of people.
It is, it is difficult. It's difficult to get favourite games. It's also difficult to get favourite armies because, the calibre of competition when it comes to the quality of painting. I don't mind saying it already, spoilers, was very impressed by the consistent high quality of army on display at that event. The upper echelons of painting at that particular event was very high. It was quite incredible, really.
You do get, I think, especially because it is focused more on the casual gamer, I would say, because there's a doubles event as well, but you do get those more hobbyist people that are coming along that put probably more effort in than you would get at a singles event. But even at the singles tournament events, you do get people that just rock up with a very well painted army, and I think often they go and they're happy to play at the bottom tables, but they go in for the best painted awards and stuff like that. Yeah,
totally. But it was, I think, overall, the quality of play was good. The people were all pretty good. But the ultimate issue, I think, a lot of the time with Throne of Skulls is that your opponent doesn't realise a lot of the time how relatively insubstantial an actual win is in the grand scheme of the game. And they weigh it very heavily in terms of their own assessment of fun. And you find that people who win their games
are struggling to win favourite game votes.
Yes, yeah. Because you're enjoying when you're winning, you're not enjoying when you're losing, unless you lost by a small degree. If it was a close game and it goes down to the wire, that tends to be the time when you enjoy it the most. Or if you draw, in a way, that's almost the best outcome, because they're the games you also really enjoy. So there is a odd, meta game. It's very hard to game the system, but there is a sort of a winning formula to winning Throne of Skulls events.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, we lost our first game. Spoilers. We lost our first game, but that was one of my favourite games of the weekend. Was that loss, because the lads we lost to were playing with a good attitude. They approached it the right way. Their army was really good. They played hard. I think their list and the way they play is very, very efficient. But they were just good guys who played in the right way. So it's not.
We also knew one of them as well. So
loosely,
but they are Warhammer World friends is the best way to describe it. We see them when they come up here because they just tend to go to the same events, and we bump into them from time to time, and we're like, "Oh, hey, it's you. How's it going?" That sort of thing.
Yeah,
and have a little catch up.
Goes. So that was probably an element of that as well. Where there's, again, I suppose that is the kind of the meta game, I suppose, is the more you're out there seeing people, the more familiar your face is, the more likely you are to accrue favourite game votes, because you build relationships with people. People like you more, the more they are around you, I guess. So
if we won a favourite game vote off of them, it took a good 10 plus years to earn.
Yeah, that's what it was. That was consistent effort on our part. And also as well, we'll acknowledge that it doesn't hurt us that we have this platform, because people know us from that. Now, sometimes they say it, sometimes they don't. I'm not suggesting for a second that the people aren't saying it and just being incredibly polite and not mentioning it to us. But often we do find ourselves in situations where our opponents have that kind of eureka moment where they're like, "Oh wow, are you the Lookout Sir guys?" And you're like, "Yes, yeah we are." And then they're like, "Oh, I love your podcast," and that's super lovely, because obviously it's amazing to meet fans, and I'm not suggesting that happens all the time, but it did happen this weekend, and that probably did also earn us a favourite game vote, because they're like, "Oh, I got to play against the Lookout Sir guys. That's cool."
Maybe. I mean, it was a good game as well.
It was a good game as well, but I will say it felt like, and again without spoiling which game it was, although they know because they'll know, it was one of those ones where I think when they figured out who we were and that they liked our podcast, I think they relaxed more and became more became more kind of like, "Oh, I know these guys. This is," and again, I think that made it a better game, because in Battle Round 1 there was all the usual kind of early game tension, and then I think once, not that it was like tense in the way that we were being volatile towards each other, but just more the usual sort of like, "Oh, I want to win," and what are these guys about, and are they good people, and can I get on with them? And then there was that thing of like, "Oh, I recognise that voice." And we did obviously have the Lookout Sir dice tray, so once they put the pieces together, they were like, "Oh," and I think that did probably.
Was it the dice tray they recognised?
I think they recognised the dice tray, and
your voice,
and my voice. Yeah, again, why is it that it's my voice? Why is it never yours?
It's distinctly
I think yours
loud.
is more distinct though. Maybe we should put that to a vote for our community to be like, what is it? What's wrong with me? Why is it that I sound so weird to people?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's a strange thing, but I do have that. Like, people do find that. Yeah, I was having a conversation with a work colleague who was new to the company this week, and he said that. He's like, "Dan, where is your accent from? It's very weird." And I'm like, "Oh, it's kind of an odd thing to say, really."
Yeah.
But anyway, so anyway, that's a bunch of variables. But look, as always, Warhammer World, we're big advocates for it. We love it. It's a great weekend. The team that put it on do a great job, and ultimately, they're always really fun. The people are good, but it's Warhammer World, right? It's a mecca for so many. I watched an Australian comedian who was on tour in the UK. He's a smaller comedian. Did a lot of videos on YouTube about Ray Gunn, Australian breakdancer at the Olympics.
Oh, right, yeah.
Anyway, I watched a bunch of his videos recently. He was over in the UK and he went specifically to Warhammer World.
Yeah.
Like he added an extra day to his tour
That's so funny.
just to go to Warhammer World. It was hilarious because he managed to get lost on the way and found himself in London instead of...
That's very lost.
I know, that was on his return journey. He was supposed to travel to Birmingham and then miraculously took a train to London.
Right, got the wrong train. Okay.
Yeah, that all went wrong for him. But anyway, hilariously, that guy, had that thing happen to him, but also, he took time out of his life to essentially come to Warhammer World, because for people like him, that's a hang on. Oh no, I think I'm all right. Sorry everyone, I'm driving at the same time and I think I thought I'd gone the wrong way. But we're fine, Phil. We've gone the right way.
The joys of the road trip.
Exactly. Anyway, that's what I'm saying though. It's a mecca for so many, so that's why it's always worth advocating for Warhammer World, because we are privileged that we live here in the UK and are able to visit on the regular and do so. But yeah, we genuinely think it's worth it. If you got the chance, come over, do a Warhammer World weekend. It's pretty fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well worth it. And it's, you get to go around the exhibition centre, which is always a joy, although we did a whistle-stop tour to just check out the new stuff that they had on display.
Which essentially amounted to a bit of Necromunda, didn't it?
In terms of displays they'd done specifically, there was a new Necromunda, like the new Underhive, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But there was also some old world Empire stuff from the, I think, 3rd edition Warhammer that had on display at the very beginning. Because the very beginning bit is retro Hammer, basically, so that was great to see. And they also had some boxes on display of all the Warhammer Quest stuff through the ages.
Yeah, it was great.
So the original Warhammer Quest, no Hero Quest, weirdly. I think it was just all Warhammer Quest stuff.
And they ended up in a weird scenario because Hero Quest isn't...
Oh, it's technically, that's NB Games.
Yeah, so
and
it's like a weird IP thing.
Yes.
And they're like,
it's not actually theirs, even though they did all the work.
Yeah, so they probably don't display that. Even though I assume they probably have copies of it on stock.
Yeah, you thought so.
For the records, but yeah, probably not something they show.
Yeah, I do find it very strange that they... I get it because it makes sense, but they sort of damaged their original, almost like mint condition copies by putting stickers on them to say, this is owned by Games Workshop for their like archival purposes. But it's like, you've kind of ruined this really immaculate thing.
Yeah,
you
but
devalued it. But for them, they don't care because they probably
that's the thing. For them, it's an archived item, though, right? It's not about, it's not preserving its resale value.
No.
It's about archiving it.
Exactly.
And I think it's great though that Games Workshop really prioritise preservation of their stuff. I think it's great. I think more companies should do more to preserve their their stuff. It's great.
True.
But it is obviously difficult for a company like GW because they've got so many products they're putting out and it must take up so much warehouse space.
True.
I'd love to actually see the behind the scenes at the archive. It must be insane.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
You always see like those videos of people going to like film studios or TV places.
Oh yes, where they get to have a look.
Yeah, and they're walking around and it's like, here's every Batmobile, and you're like, oh my goodness, that looks pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously, Warhammer doesn't quite have its own. Well, it's got a Rhino outside the front of Warhammer World, but it's not quite the same as every Batmobile, I guess. But they'll have their own thing.
Mm-hmm. They will.
But anyway.
Indeed.
So that was the general kind of sales pitch for going to Warhammer World. So make sure you do. And we're going to talk about our armies. We're going to talk about the event. We're going to talk about the people we played. So hopefully you enjoy it. It's going to take us an hour and 10 minutes to arrive at Phil's home. So this segment's going to be an hour and 10 minutes, assuming that no horrific traffic incidents are caused along the way. Imagine that, Phil. This could be some kind of horrific evidence in a court hearing as we plough into something.
I mean, what a way to go. The final episode.
Well, absolutely. Would you imagine in that circumstance they would classify this as dangerous driving?
Possibly.
I don't know, though, because I would be talking to you regardless.
Yes.
So it feels a little bit absurd to suggest that this is dangerous.
No, I don't think so.
But anyway, who knows? The point is, everybody, this is us talking about a Warhammer World doubles event. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to do I don't actually know. What are we actually going to do in terms of the overall episode? It doesn't matter. We will have figured that out, and that'll be done in a different section. So yeah, let's get into it. So what did you take, Phil?
I took my Thunder Warriors, running them as custodies, taking the new lines of the Emperor detachments, which gives them +1 to hit and +1 to wound if I'm outside of 6 inches.
Which you rarely were.
Which I rarely were. Mostly, I'm blaming you for that, Dan, because you had your models hugging mine constantly, much to my annoyance. And I kept telling you off.
Mechanicus love hugs.
And it got to the point where I just gave up telling you, because the first game you sort of made an effort to avoid. Other games you didn't. I mean, things like the bikes and occasionally other units towards the end, when we're a bit more spread out, they were getting it. But I mean, a lot of games it didn't matter. We didn't, thankfully, have to go up against a vehicle-heavy list a lot of the time, so it wasn't a deal breaker for me.
Well, you know, the way I looked at it, Phil, it's your responsibility to get out of the way of me.
I see.
That's how it was. You see, your ability, your problem.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, what was it, the list, Phil? What did you bring?
I had a Captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike with the enhancement that gave him +3 strength, -1 AP, and +1 damage. So strength 10, AP 3, and 3 damage. So he's really good in combat. That makes him a lot better than the standard one.
Yeah.
I had him with 2 standard Dawn Eagle jet bikes. They all had the missile launchers. Then I had 1 Blade Champion. He had the enhancement to get back up on a 2-up, which I think happened once in one game. Every other game he survived. Actually, no. The last game he died and didn't get back up. Or in one of them he died and didn't get back up, and then in the other game he got back up, and then in 3 of them he didn't die at all.
Yeah.
He was with a squad of 4 wardens with the axes. They're sometimes quite durable with a once per game.
Sometimes.
4 plus feel no pain. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Often, it seemed.
Often. And then I also had a standard Blade Champion because he had no enhancements, and he was with it was a 5-man squad of Guardians with the spears plus the Vexilla, which is the banner for +1 OC, but mostly just for taking with the shield that gives him an extra wound.
He's good for soaking up that damage.
Yes, which was quite handy a couple of times. And that was my list. It was quite small.
It was very small, to be fair. I think we'll do our list notes at the end, I guess, but or rather we could probably do list notes now. I mean, of that 1,000 points, how did you think, like, was there anything you'd change about it now that you've played like 6 games with it?
Well, I think the Dawn Eagle jet bikes of a unit were, I don't want to say useless, but they very rarely got into combat because they were mostly shot.
Yeah, I felt like the jet bikes were a very, very weaker part of the army.
Yes, and I think sometimes I often flung them up the board to try and get on an objective or do a secondary, and maybe put them in a position where they could be shot at, and maybe I should have been a bit more defensive with them. The captain I actually really liked and thought he was good.
Yeah.
I think maybe in quite a few games I would have been much better off actually just putting a unit of some kind in deep strike, and coming a turn or 2 later down into the opponent's back line and causing real problems there. And that would have sort of changed the game in terms of the pace, because we were mostly just pushing into the midfield.
Yeah.
And their home objective was never contested ever. And actually that could have put a lot more pressure on them. And I think that would have helped in some of the games, especially the first game when they were all coming at us.
I do genuinely think that bike squad and captain should probably have been a Terminator squad and captain.
Yeah, I don't have a Terminator captain.
Sorry, yeah. Even if it was just
a Terminator squad would have been. Personally, I don't think that Terminator squad is that good, but would have given us more flexibility in where it goes. But I think they'd have actually had less punch.
Yeah, so I suppose I'm talking about it less from the perspective of based on what you have and based on what I think would have been better for the.
Yeah,
so rather than sort of figuring out what would have been more optimal based on your limited pool of options, or what you could have.
I think you could have gone for the Alaris Terminators.
Yes, exactly.
With a captain would have been a lot more interesting, because the Alaris Terminators are cheaper. well, you can take them in less numbers. You can take them in 2 instead of 3,
yeah.
and they have much better output than the Aquilons, which are the Forge-Rod ones, which are the ones I have. So yeah, I think that would have been a sort of more optimal choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the belly gun guys, which is the Pythorite spears with the melters.
Yeah.
They're only 12-inch range, but they're melters, so they're very fun.
Yeah.
And you know, in some games, like I would say it's game 4, where we had a lot of vehicles to deal against, might have been quite handy then to deal with those sorts of things. But they're a very expensive unit. They're like $250, I think, because you've got to take them in the full 5-man squad.
Yeah. 3-man squad.
No,
sorry, the belly guns.
The belly gun guys have to be in the 5-man squad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very difficult to fit into the list, basically. But the regular sword and shield guys, I think I was wise to leave because they're just 1 damage apiece. In combat, they're not very good at all in this edition, unless you're up against literally hordes of guardsmen.
Yeah.
That would be the only time they'd really be worth taking. Honestly, I really struggled with durability. So potentially there was a few times when, you know, maybe I could have changed my detachment. So the Lions of the Emperor was good, but as you said, I didn't actually get the bonus that much. Yeah. If I went for, I can't remember, it's the Auric Champions, I want to say, where you just pick a unit and you get +1 to wound against it, that potentially would have been more beneficial because I could have targeted a unit that I really want to go for. Yeah. The whole army gets it against that one unit, and then for a CP I could get a second one if I killed that initial unit. It also crucially has a 4-up feel no pain against mortal wound strat, which was actually quite important in a couple of games where I just died due to some mortal wound output because the Lions detachment doesn't have any kind of protection against that. But it had some nice things. It had the movement shenanigans of a stratagem. So there's a strat where when I'm shot, after I've been shot, I can, for 1 CP, move D6 inches, which often was more handy as a threat. By telling my opponent about it can happen, it gave them a lot of choices in terms of the ordering of their shooting and also what they wanted to go for in terms of what they were shooting at. You know, if we were to have gotcha'd them, that would have been more advantageous for us, but we were always quite upfront about that ability. And then it had, they had a couple of other sort of stratagems that were quite useful.
Very useful.
Fight on Death was fun. It sort of went off 50-50 in terms of sometimes it was really good, other times it didn't really do much.
It was good though. It was great.
When it went off, it was really good.
Yeah.
I think one game I got to use the trigger. Actually, no, I don't think I ever did use it. Because there's a stratagem where you use a once per game ability. You can use that ability again later in the game. And I think there's only 2 that I can use. So there's the Blade Champions charge after they've advanced, and then there's the Captain sort of fall back from combat ability. So those 2 I could have done an extra one, which I think there's a few times I thought about it and didn't do, and then sometimes actually I gone, I kind of wish I had done. I sort of wish you can trigger it at the point you need to do it a second time rather than after the first time, because it's sort of, you don't know if you're going to need it or not. And CP is such a limited resource.
Especially between 2 players, even though it's one army, the politics of CP usage is very interesting between players.
You're saying that very politely, Dan.
No, it is. I mean, I tended to be quite reserved with it. I think, most games I probably spent of the pool of CP available, I'd say I was like
a third.
Yeah, I was definitely a 1 in 3 ratio.
Yeah,
and a lot of the time.
Or sometimes you could get it for free as well with your ability.
Yeah, well, I should talk about that, right? So I talk about the army that I brought, and we'll see what people think of it. I really admit it wasn't necessarily the best army, but I thought it was going to bring a lot of interestingly complementary elements to what Phil was doing, and I thought that was. Like the main gimmick of it was to try and add a bit of spice, and also to experiment with a mechanic that I think doesn't really see enough play, which is battle shock. So I did AdMech, and I did them in the
Rad Corps.
The Rad Corps, the Radical Corps Because it's spelled with a C, isn't it? It's not with a K.
Yes, but I assume it's still called core, but, you know, who knows? It could be corpses in a corpse.
It could be.
It doesn't have
a
a name.
radiated corpse.
Exactly.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
We're radiating corpses and then, you know, severing their limbs, slapping various mechanical parts to them and bending them to our will.
Exactly.
As is the way of the Mechanicum, or Mechanicus, whichever it is. But yeah, so I did AdMech, and I did the Rad Bombardment via the Radical Corps. And essentially, Rad Bombardment, as a rule, is in the first battle round, so at the start of the first battle round, before either player goes first or second, you give your opponent the opportunity to decide whether or not they are battle shocked or not. So basically, every unit on their side of in their deployment zone has a choice: am I battle shocked or am I not? If they are battle shocked, they take D3 mortal wounds on 5+, and if they aren't battle shocked, they take D3 mortal wounds on a 3+. Which, you know, on the surface of it, doesn't seem too bad, because you look at it, you go, whatever. All of my guys will just be battle shocked. That's fine, no trouble. And
then we had to explain to them.
It's true, yes. So then we'd have to follow up and say, yes, right, well, you say that. Do you actually understand what being battle shocked is like? Because I don't think very many people ever really have to deal with battle shock in the game.
Yes, I think you're right.
So a lot of the time they don't realise the depth of the problem that it represents.
Because it's like, you do realise it does mean you can't do actions. And they're like, oh. And then you go, and you do realise it means your OC 0. I'm like, okay. And then you're like, and you can't use stratagems. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. But then the amount of times our opponent tried to then use a stratagem, especially Overwatch.
Overwatch.
The amount of times they wanted to Overwatch, and you're like, you can't, you're battle shocked. And they'd be like, oh, god damn it.
Yeah, it was it was a very frequent occurrence, and it was quite interesting because it really opened my eyes to the strength of that mechanic and how it works and what it offers, because basically it didn't feel powerful. I don't think I would go so far as to call it powerful, but it felt...
Except in game 1.
Except in game 1, although, again, we lost game 1. But,
that is true.
But it definitely felt powerful in game 1. But in subsequent games, it wasn't really a deal breaker, but it definitely helped keep us in the game.
For sure. Yeah, so not only does it happen in turn 1, but it also happens in every other turn afterwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the rule specifically states that you are battle shocked till the end of the first battle round. So essentially, the very first one is a bit more volatile, and the subsequent ones are a little less volatile, but they are actually quite irritating if you are going first. So if I'm going first, it's not actually that bad because it triggers at the start of the battle round, and essentially the way it works is every model or every unit within the opponent's deployment zone or within 6 of that deployment zone, because you enhance it for 25 points to increase the range of the bombardment of all subsequent fallout to 6 inches, basically. So you roll a d6 for every unit within that range, and on a 3+, they take a mortal wound, and then they roll a battle shock test. And most of the time they pass the battle shock test, but a lot of the times they don't. And it's quite funny, because when you're going first, for your entire turn, a lot of stuff is still battle shocked and has taken some mortal wounds. So it creates a really interesting gameplay dynamic. So I quite liked the Radical Corps. I actually thought it was quite fun. I mean, what did you think of it, Phil?
It was really good. I think it did a lot of work, especially in certain matchups where they were more in their deployment zone than others. So yeah, I think it did open my eyes to how strong Battle Shock can be.
Yeah.
But I think it feels like most of the time Battle Shock either doesn't happen, because actually I think the Battle Shock test itself is quite difficult to fail unless there's minuses, or you're taking a lot of it. And basically, because it's everything in a deployment zone, it means a lot of it. There's a lot more chance of Battle Shock going off, so you can actually see it have an impact on the game.
Yeah.
Whereas quite often, either people forget. Quite often, when you're under half strength, people forget, or they're alive and they're not taking it, or they're dead.
Yes.
There's a very nuanced element where you're under half strength, still in the game.
Yeah.
And that Battle Shock test will have an impact on something.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it across an entire army, it does have a big impact.
No, big time.
So basically, they need to make Battleshot more prevalent in the game to be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think they definitely could do with giving more armies access to abilities like that to try and, be more oppressive with Battleshock.
Can I make one complaint about that?
Please,
As a Custodes player, I am Leadership 6.
Yes.
And I had a Battleshock test against me, automatically went off because I killed a unit of Reavers.
Yeah.
The Battleshot me because it was -1, so I failed, basically. Yeah. And then I discover that Space Marines are Leadership 6, Chaos Dreadnoughts and vehicles are Leadership 6. It's like everything's Leadership 6. It's like, okay, everything. And I would be like, stuff needs to have much worse leadership. Baseline, like, Guard should be junk.
Yeah, I agree.
And be like Leadership 9, not, I think it's like 7 or 8.
Yeah, they're like
it's
7.
like, Space Marines should not have the same leadership as Custodes.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, it always falls down, though, into GW's almost necessity to apologise constantly to 40k players for making them having to have bad things happen to them. Like, it feels like a lot of the time...
So they're trying to make it very rare, basically.
Yeah. But in a way, I actually think it makes it worse because it means your relationship with it is sort of weirdly unfamiliar, and I think it sort of annoys you more when you fail it. Whereas I think if you're like a Guard player, like, by all means, come up with, like, means by which...
Like the Commissars, for example, is a way of getting out of it.
Vox casters or whatever it is. Right? You can come up with ways to, massage it for that army in particular. But yeah, I do agree. Like, I think Battleshock to me feels like it should be more difficult. And I do feel like Custodes should be one of the armies that are braver than Space Marines and blah, blah, blah. But I suppose the problem is like, what is the scale by which you essentially assert that a Space Marine that knows no fear is less or more fearless than a Custodian or Custodie? So, it does become a weird set of variables. I don't mind Space Marines and Custodies having the same level of fearlessness. If anything, I almost feel like Custodies might actually... There could be an argument because of the finesse and actual kind of tactical nuance and ability of Custodies. Maybe they are more aware of needing to be, preserving their lives, whereas Space Marines are a bit more blunt force trauma. They're a bit more narrow-minded, shall we say?
Well, I sort of understand where you're coming from, but I sort of disagree.
I disagree as well, but I'm just sort of trying to make an argument that maybe there's... The thing is, the degrees by which something is kind of not afraid of stuff, I don't know how much that can kind of change. Like, a Space Marine knows no fear, Custodes knows no fear. At that point, it's like,
it's the ironic thing of the reason why in AOS they got rid of Battleshock or morale is everything feels like everything bar one faction ignores morale because everything's fearless for some reason because they're all superhumans in their own way. At which point it's all mute if you go down that route because it's like, of course a demon is as fearless as a Custodes. And you're like, right, okay, I do sort of get it.
By the way, Phil, I feel like it's worth mentioning to our listeners, the Satnav has taken us the maddest route today.
Oh, I believe it was because the motorway was closed for some reason, it said. Which is why we're getting the scenic route, which is probably better for the road trip vibes that we're doing.
Well, there you go.
Because otherwise you're not hearing the mad noise that the motorway gives people.
But it is weird, because I feel like it is increasingly more likely that we might have that devastating crash.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Because you've got to concentrate more on actually driving.
Well, exactly. Well, we're driving down windy B roads out in the middle of the sticks. I'm waiting for, like, a deer or something to charge out into the road.
That could happen.
Anyway, we'll be all right. So anyway, that's the broad strokes Battleshock fun. Last point on that, though. Yes, Guard should be worse at it. Yes, Elders should be worse at it. I understand the idea that we're brave, we're Elder, but it's like, no, but you are like a dying race. You should probably be a bit more concerned about your own lives. And same with the Guard, you should be fearful.
What is the leadership of Elder, do you know?
I like 6.
Because to me it should be 6. So 7 is the statistical bell curve of probability that you will roll. So something that is good at leadership, good at battle shock, should be 7. So Elder, 7. Guard should be worse and statistically fail,
Yeah.
8, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I would say they should be a 9. And then have means of making it better.
Interesting, yeah, that is the
I've
more,
often always advocated.
the more like, if it is going to happen, you're going to fail,
Yeah.
unless you have something to circumvent it in some way or give yourself a benefit.
I've often advocated for the idea, though, that they should have added in mechanics that work around the idea that the bigger the squad, the more unruly it is. You know?
Like the old orcs.
Well, I used to like the
spin it
idea
like
that, like, if a unit is over a certain amount of models and it doesn't have, like, command infrastructure, like the idea...
commander.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, this was more of an 8th edition gripe, but it was that thing where it's like, if a unit is more than 20 minis, it shouldn't be able to have stratagems done to it, because it's just an unruly horde, you know? As soon as a unit... Because that was always the problem back in the day, and it's still a problem now, finessing armies so as elite units feel elite. That is still an issue that this core kind of game concept that they've created doesn't meaningfully address. Yes, Custodes do feel more elite because they're high toughness and high armor saves and high strength, a good amount of attacks, etc. But they do just still get taken down by 30 guardsmen. Right?
Oh yeah, no, so yeah, spoilers for the last game. I got shot at by 20, I guess it would have been 25 guardsmen, because it was a unit of 20 plus a command squad.
Yeah.
And in one turn of shooting, plus Ursula Creed I think was in there as well, I lost 4 Custodes because it was rapid firing las guns with +1 shots, so it was 4 shots each, I believe. They had just, I think it was like 4 plasma guns and 2 melter guns because of all the specialist weapons.
Yeah.
And to me, back in the day, back when I was old, or no, young, back when I was young, used to be, you had 1 special weapon per 10 men.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be. It shouldn't be 2. That is wrong. And it just makes sort of weirdly the bog standard guardsman too good.
Yeah.
Especially when it's all for free.
But again, it's again another thing. It goes back to the point. They're always sort of doing things to be nice to the 40k players. It's always like, don't compromise, just do everything. It's fine.
No, true. But then at the same time, that guard squad just died to some of your AdMech shooting.
Wow, a lot of AdMech shooting.
Yes, you sort of shot them back with an equivalent. Well, actually, not as many. You shot them with like 10 guards, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, 10 Skitarii Vanguard, and then the Onager and the...
Oh, you did some of the...
Yeah, I did the Onager and the Scorpius.
Why don't you say what your list was?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about the list. So it was 4 characters. So we had the Tech Priest Manipulus. The Tech Priest Manipulus is essentially the shushing Tech Priest.
Yes.
Used to be really strong. These days, not as good, but still pretty potent. He's got a nice flamer because I gave him the flamer weapon, so it's like a 2 damage flamer, which is pretty cool. But other than that, you know, he's a pretty bongo character, but he gives 4-up in-bun once per game. Not too great in combat. He's all right. He's fun. He's a cool-looking mini. He's in the list. Next was the Techno-Archaeologist, which I was representing with the Titanic...
Titan Tech Priest.
From Forge World. Really cool mini.
Yeah.
Really cool mini. I was really lucky to pick up one of those and have that. So, yeah, that was cool. And he has the... you can't arrive from reserves within 12 inches of him, which is pretty great. He also increases the objective control, the OC, of the unit that he joins, which is super cool. We had a 3rd character that was the Tech Priest Engine Seer, who is essentially the custodian of the vehicles. If you're going to take vehicles, he's a great addition because he can heal vehicles and then also give them the 5-up Feel No Pain ability in doing so, which is super fun. And then if a vehicle dies in range of him, he gets more fighty, which is super cool. Next And last was the Cyberdyne Datasmith. Cyberdyne Datasmith has to go with the Castellan robots and has abilities to bolster or adjust the Castellan robot settings. So Castellan robots essentially have like 3 settings. They can be better at shooting, better at fighting, or just better at being defensive in the general sense. So yeah, really cool collection of characters there. 2 enhancements. One was increasing the range of my rad fallout from the bombardment. So the fallout range is essentially deployment zone plus 6 inches. And the Cyberdyne Datasmith had the -1 to hit on the squad that he is in. So that was super useful as well. So that was the characters. In terms of the battle line units, I had 2 battle line units, and that was 1 unit of Rangers and 1 unit of Vanguard. The Vanguard and the Rangers both had their sniper rifles, but I was relatively limited in terms of access to other sort of special weapons, mostly just because the units, I didn't think to build the specialist weapons onto those, so it is what it is. But they had the rifles, which look good. And then in terms of other units, I had a unit of Castellan robots, so 2 Castellan robots with fists, and then also had a unit of Sakaran infiltrators with taser goads and the kind of Uzi pistol. I think they're called like stubber carbines or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
But they were cool. And then I had a Scorpius destroyer or something of that nature. Basically, it is the outer line of sight, indirect firing weapon. And then I also had an Onager Dune Crawler with the eradicating beamer and the additional Cognos heavy stubber. So that was 1,000 points on the nose. In terms of notes about the list, I definitely needed to have more faith in the shooting capabilities of the Rangers. So good. Yeah.
In our first game, you wiped out like almost a whole unit of World Eaters, like Berserkers.
Well, not quite wiped out, but I did a lot of damage.
Knocked them down to like a couple of models.
That was quite lucky though, because again, the way that the Skitarii rules kind of layer on top of each other, I won't get into all of it because we'll be talking about it for ages and we want to talk about the games. But essentially what GW has done to try and make the army better is they've thrown lots of things at them. So you have essentially a defensive ability and an aggressive ability. So when you're in like defensive, you have a bunch of buffs, and when you're aggressive, you've got a bunch of, it's basically when you're in defensive mode, you're more durable, and when you're aggressive, you're more attacking. So you can layer those things in interesting ways and just do some good output. So the Vanguard surprised me with their output because they're quite a lot of shots, and they do well. Rangers are actually quite good as well. So on the whole, I would say I think I made the right shout, because at one point I was doing 2 Iron Striders instead of the Onager. I think it was better doing the Onager because the Onager was way more
had a lot of durability, helped
much.
win one of the games because it tied up a bunch of Marines.
Yes, oh god, the old screen Stern Guard thing,
Stern
wasn't
Guard,
it?
that was it,
yeah, that was mad. So honestly, I mean
the infiltrators sort of quite often died because they were the first things to go, but in a few games they stuck around and did stuff.
I think the infiltrators were probably the most pointless unit. I think on balance with the way most of the games played, I probably would have been better off taking something else, but I don't know what else I would have taken. They're not crazy points, and
no, true. Because originally you wanted 4 of the Castellan robots. What did you swap out 2 of them for?
I swapped out 2 of them for the Scorpius.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have given you more upfront punch, but actually having a lot of shooting sometimes was quite useful.
Massively useful. I think having access to that consistent,
especially the out of line of sight shooting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I genuinely think that was the right call. I think I made the right last minute changes to complement what we were trying to do, because I think the Onager consistently did work, was very durable. I think the boat did really well when it had the right targets in front of it. But I think, in hindsight, I would have taken out...
You just needed more specialist weapons in your...
Well, I genuinely think what I should have done is take another unit of Rangers.
Yeah.
I think one Vanguard unit's fine, but I think, 2 units of Rangers.
If we had an extra set of bodies to be on objectives and do stuff, that would have been helpful.
Which is what the infiltrators were kind of there to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's surprising about the infiltrators is they do have movement 8. So they
that is true.
They get around.
No, that is true. And then no slouch. They got stuck into combat a couple of times and stuck around for a little bit.
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, T4, 4 up save, 2 wounds. They're not bad. You know, for a little 80-point unit, they've got some utility to them. So that was fun, and they did well. Well, they didn't do well, but they did their job. This was fine. That was the lists. That was the vibe. We went into the weekend. We did a quick test game on the Friday night against Spike and Richie, who took Ultramarines and
Dark Angels.
Their team was called Daddy Issues because they had both Primarchs, and they had Lionel Johnson and Roberto Gilliman, and effectively they had a lot of aggression and a lot of Terminators, so good durability and a lot of pressure. With a few units of intercessors to just be annoying in the general sense. So we played them in a game test on the Friday night, and they messed us up bad, didn't they, Phil?
Weirdly, we won on points, even though we only got to turn 3 because we had to break for dinner.
Yeah.
So we had on points, but they won in terms of what was left on the table because they had just tons of Terminators and 2 Primarchs. So
they were going to win basically.
Yeah, that one was difficult to deal with.
But that was us sort of like that was an interesting lesson for the rules and refreshing things. But the first game we played against a list of World Eaters and Chaos Space Marines.
That was
Corn Hub.
Corn Hub. Yeah, you'll notice there was a lot of adult-themed puns throughout the weekend.
Well, we were Thundercogs Are Loose, which was a
Thundercats reference.
So feel the magic, feel the roar. Thundercogs are loose. Doo-doo. That was our things. We could have gone with Thundercogs. That could have been
that one. Yeah.
We didn't think about it well.
We struggled to find a good pun for our team.
No, but I felt like Thundercogs Are Loose at least sort of had a sort of like I like the our loose bit to it. Kind of gave it a bit of a sort of jovial element, I suppose.
Yes, that's true.
Took a bit of a sting out of it, you know.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But we came up against Corn Hub. I don't remember what was in their list. It was lots of berserkers and rhinos, and lots
Mauler Fiends and one Mauler Fiend and then 2 of the other versions that shoot.
We had quite a respectful showing against them, though. We got all 5 turns done.
Yeah,
we killed quite a lot of it.
Yes, yeah. It was basically World Eaters and Mauler Fiends into my Custodies. There was a bit of a crunch in the middle.
Yeah.
I came at it slightly worse, I think. But then your shooting back sort of nullified a lot of their stuff, and then I managed to work my way up through one sort of flank.
They really suffered against the Rad bombardment.
Yes, because you just rolled so well for that.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of mortals on the Rad, which was hilarious.
But it was the Battle Shock stopped them from doing stuff that they wanted to, like the Overwatch.
Yeah, and again, that was when we realised that we needed to probably do a better job of explaining the negatives of Battle Shock to people, because I felt like, even though I'm fairly confident they gave us a favourite game vote at the end of the weekend because we had a great time playing it, they were great guys, and again, as we said previously, we'd built up a bit of positive equity with them from earlier experiences. I think what happened in that game was quite frustrating because...
Oh yeah, well they said, so I chatted with them, I think it was like game 4, they said... and at that point they'd won all their games, but they lost their last game. But up until that point, they were like, our game was the toughest that they had come across.
Yeah.
Even though they'd won all their games, we were the toughest opponent because of, I think, the battle shock and the rad bombardment.
That's
so
cool.
yeah, but they obviously enjoyed it as well.
They were definitely our toughest opponents.
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
I mean, we lost to them, but I think they were easily the best.
They were the one
team
that
we
were
played.
closest to tabling us, basically.
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, they played it really well, but it was fun. It was a good game. I did have a little wobble, not a wobble because I didn't really mind, because again it is what it is. But there was a moment where my Castellan robots charged into a unit of World Eaters.
Oh,
And he basically, after I was in there, declared that...
Gotcha.
He basically was like, oh, by the way, I'm fight first. And you're like, oh, good.
Yes. If we'd have known, maybe you wouldn't have done that.
Well, I
you were
would've-
sort of up there to do that.
No, but there was no advantage. Basically, I would have used the Castellan robots to roadblock as opposed to
go in.
Yeah.
Because it would have delayed them from doing anything for a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, whereas we were quite upfront with like our abilities and what they might do, not all. I guess sometimes we might have forgotten, but for the most part, we did try to warn people.
I don't think Sam. It was Sam, wasn't it?
Yes, Sam.
I don't think Sam was mucking me around.
No.
I just think he forgot to mention it.
Yes.
But it did have a moment where I was a bit like, that was probably one of those instances where I was like, ooh, can I?
To be fair, he should have said, "You can not charge with them if you want," sort of thing.
He also, as well, to be fair as well, didn't remind me about the blood surge thing, which I know
Oh,
they
where
have.
they move. Oh, because they can move into combat, can't they?
Yeah, I know they have blood surge, but I forgot in that moment until it happened to me. But it is what it is. I'm not going to get bent out of shape about that. But anyway, yeah. Long story short is we played our socks off. I was like, at the end of turn 5, I thought we'd done enough.
Oh yes, because they had a really good turn 4, but we had a really good turn 5.
Oh, it was great.
And I was keeping track of the scores throughout the weekend, and Dan wasn't aware of what was going on. And he, as you said, played his heart out to do all these moves to get on the objective because we were going second, I think. Yes, because they got the first turn, which they didn't want.
Yeah.
And they played it super conservatively, and we played super conservatively. And yeah, so you thought we had clinched a win.
Yeah, I thought.
And I was like, no, Dan, they won. They steamrolled us on like their turn 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So they were well up. So even though we clawed a lot back on the last turn, it wasn't enough. So they got 72 points,
Yes,
and
that's
we
right.
got 63.
Which I think was good, though. Good
It
showing.
was a good showing, and it was close, but just not close enough.
Is what it is. Again, I think if we had really thought about it, we could have leaned into like a secret mission, probably to have.
I don't know if there was the option for secret mission. I mean, there
Well, it
could
must
have
have been
been.
because we were clearly very far behind by the end of about round 3.
You are true. Yeah, maybe I just didn't notice it in the app.
It is what it is. But yeah, great guys, had a great game. We gave them a favourite game vote. And again, like, you know, even when I mentioned like the fight first shenanigans, such as they were, no hard feelings. It was a great game. I had a good time with it, and they played it great. So yeah, good starter, I would say.
Yeah.
Who do we have next, Phil? I can't remember their names. I just remember they had
next
Blood Angels and Elder.
Yeah, it was Luke and Dan, bottom of the barrel. They were
Bottom
called.
of the barrel, Luke and Dan. There it is. Dan was Elder and Luke was Blood Angels.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
I'm fairly sure that was the way it went. But if we're wrong, apologies, gents.
But that was a good game as well.
It was a good game. Yeah, it was. I mean, look, it was a very, very interesting list that they brought. So they had a lot of fire prisms, a lot of D-cannons and Guardian squads. They also had nothing but like Sangard, basically. So they had a lot of Sanguinary Guard. And it was a concern because Sanguinary Guard do really slap. And it does become quite an interesting matchup into Phil's Custodies and obviously my Admech. But it's like a bar fight at the end of the day. You know, Phil's Custodies point to the floor, and the Sangard and the Custodies stand there and swing at each other. You know.
Yes, yeah. Basically, it was a punching fight between Sanguinary Guards and the Custodians, and that basically is the decider of the game.
Yeah.
Basically,
And in
and
this
I
instance-
came up
Yeah.
trumps.
Yeah, basically,
basically.
the Custodians basically walloped them, and it was game. Like,
Yeah, it was the end of turn 2, I think. It was basically Yeah, end of turn 2, yeah, because by turn 3 they weren't scoring anything, and we just played out the last 3 turns, so we got max points.
Yeah, you made a Hail Mary charge turn 1 into Dante, and you just basically murked him.
Oh, yes, I didn't even realise Dante was in there, and then I did all my rolls, and then he was like, oh yeah, Dante's dead at the end, and I was like, oh, I didn't realise he was in there.
Yeah.
So I did, my classic advance and charge, with, I think that was the Wardens.
Yeah, it was the Wardens, yeah, they got right in there, just mucked him up, and then more Sangard ran into more, custodians. It just didn't do enough, and Sanguinor came down, tried to help out, but wasn't really able to make a dent.
Oh yeah, so with that one I think I did the fight on death, but then didn't really need it, and Sanguinor didn't punch very hard back, so I managed to deal with him.
Yeah, it was just one of those where ultimately, the custodians went hard in the paint, to use what I understand is prison terminology for when you
right.
fight.
Okay.
And that was it, really. It was a ridiculous outcome, and I just basically killed the Elder with lots of radiation, and that was it. Basically, I just shot the hell out of those Elder while you just swung for the fences against the Sangard, and as when all was said and done, we smashed it. I mean, on your scorecard, we said we'd scored 100.
100 to 23.
Yeah, but on theirs they said 90 somehow, and we went, oh well, whatever, we'll say 90 then.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, because I think because they were both scoring, there was a slight discrepancy in the points.
I felt bad for the Sangard player because he
was out the game quite early.
And he checked out quite a bit mentally, and I think it's hard, right? Because when you lose 2 in a row, it does feel a bit rubbish, and you do feel a bit sad about it because you want to win your games, right? But he didn't, and that was the way it went. So I'm not throwing any shade at. It was the Blood Angels player, so not Dan, I guess, in this situation.
I guess so. Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, they were really nice dudes, and they played a great game, and they tried their best, and they just got unlucky. Phil's weighted dice won the day.
Clearly.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, my dice felt weighted all bloody weekend.
I was rolling the Games Workshop Inquisitorial Xenos dice, the purple ones.
Yeah, I was using the pink Pigmar dice from the Bristol Pigmar team. And those things roll hot, or at least when I'm rolling them.
Yes, yeah, you did roll very well at times.
My goodness. Anyway, so that was a win for us, which is great. Got us in the W column. So that was a cool game. I think we played it really well. Although I don't actually think we played it really well at all. I just think we just got lucky and then just steamrolled them. But to be honest, your Hail Mary play was a big definitive moment. Like that. We essentially punched them hard in the nose, and they didn't really know what to do to recover from that.
And so in every game, basically, I deployed as close as to the deployment edge as possible, but usually behind either if I could be in a building, because all the ruins were the tournament style we were doing. Even though it was meant to be a mixture of thematic stuff and tournament stuff, it was all the tournament stuff. And it was all the downstairs floors were blocking line of sight. So if there was windows, you were ignoring them. So if I was in a big block, I would be up against there, or I'd be behind a building to just be obscured. Which I think was a mistake in some games, like the last one, because they were close enough to be charged. Actually, not the last one, the second to last one, where they were close enough to be charged at by some of their stuff. But I was sort of hoping that they were too far away, or I could do my advance and charge, basically. It sort of, which worked out more than it didn't, I think.
So the third game, we were facing up against Ultramarines and something else.
Tau, wasn't it?
Ultramarines and Tau.
Yeah, because it was Carson, Codices, James and Ben.
James and Ben. Yeah, no, again, nice looking army. In retrospect, probably should have got a favourite army vote out of us of the armies we played.
Yeah, because they were nicely painted.
They were
nicely painted, especially the Tau. I really liked their Riptide and stuff, but we sort of forgot about them when we were doing by the end, we're very flustered.
Yeah.
And our brains are frazzled. So we went with the two that we thought at the time, forgetting about these guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, and again, it was one of those ones, right, where we got quite a convincing win, and but it was a convincing win that came from
turn like 3, I think.
Yeah, but it was also because of a lot of mistakes that they made. Like the Tau side of it, massively overplayed their hand and moved way too aggressively.
Yeah, they moved a Riptide directly sort of towards us, but in a position that had no line of sight to shoot at anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool, they're not able to shoot at my bits. Great. I'll take that.
This is the thing, right? So, and it was in range of my Castellan robots for a charge. They get in, they're in fight mode, so there's 6 attacks each. Yes, they're hitting on 4s, but they're re-rolling their wounds, and they just sort of ran in and just went, I hear you like being punched, and then he just died, and it was like, oh, okay. And immediately I rolled hot, that was part of it. I did roll very well, but it was, it was just a bit rough. The Tau bounced, and then essentially after the Tau bounced,
well, the Space Marines did a lot of work, so they managed to attack my my Warden squad with, basically, they disembarked a unit from the Land Raider, so they had the Company of Heroes charge in, plus the Blade Guard charge in, killed all but one Warden, I think it was, leaving the Blade Champion and one Warden alive, so they fought, but I didn't really kill much, and then in the following turn, I fell them back, but then with a strat charged back in. Then my Guardian Spear squad with a Blade Champion got it stuck in as well, and that pretty much finished them off.
Well, I think their biggest mistake was when their Stern Guard unit finally appeared, which...
They did a lot of shooting, which was good for one turn.
For one turn. They didn't actually kill that much with it, though.
No.
And then they went, I know, we'll charge the Onager. And the Onager was in a prime position where it was really well situated for shooting. And they charged into it.
Because they wanted to stop it from shooting at their Land Raider.
They wanted it to stop shooting at the Land Raider. But obviously they completely forgot that it was a vehicle, so it just kept doing it.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, they made it -1 to hit.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. It was so the Stern Guard are in there. There's one Power Fist in the squad,
and they're just
a
punching
librarian.
it otherwise with fists.
Yeah, they're just punching with fists. It's
and they spent 3 turns just stuck in combat with it, not able to kill it.
Yeah, they refused to leave combat because they weren't.
That was a real mistake. Cause that's a lot of points just doing nothing.
That was all in. That was a near 300-point unit.
And that wasn't even fighting over an objective.
No, they were sat in no man's land fighting an Onager that they can't kill.
That was a bit ridiculous.
It was so dumb. It was like, what are you doing? But they just did it, and I think they thought...
The sunk cost fallacy of we've just got to keep going until it goes, I guess.
But they literally, they never got it below... The lowest they got it was down to 7 wounds.
Oh, because you were constantly healing it back up.
I was constantly healing it, because the tech breezers just sat behind it going, I heal you, and then heal you D3, and now you got Feel No Pain 5+. And it's like, brilliant, so I'm even more durable. So it was like the maddest situation. So yeah, basically, in my opinion, that's one of the major things that lost them that game.
Yes, I agree.
But, people make those mistakes. They forget about things. They think, because I think they asserted that I was just going to retreat. But I'm like, what am I retreating from? You're a bunch of strength 4. Okay, you got 4 attacks each, but you're not lethals. You're nothing. It's like, what do I care?
Because by the end, I didn't have much left. I think I had 1 Blade Champion, maybe.
Yeah, and had that Stern Guard squad just been running around,
that could have caused a lot more problems for us.
It would have wrecked us both, but it didn't, because it just spent 3 turns trying to fight with an Onager that it couldn't kill.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But yeah, that was a win. Felt bad for those guys, because in a way, that mistake did cost them dearly. We did get lucky in some places because those blade guards just whiffed hard.
Yeah,
but it was a fun game and I enjoyed it. And like, you know, it felt nice to finish day one with 2 wins, 1 loss, because that's always a nice ratio.
That's true. Yeah, because that was 97 to us, 53 to them.
Yeah,
so it was a sort of quite a decisive win in the end.
Yeah, it turned out well. Day 2, we had a nice night out, went for pizza. That was lovely. You know, again, the last game of the day finishes between like 8:30, so you're kind of getting out of there at like 8:30 more or less. So we had a reservation at a pizza place for like 9:30. Got out of there at like 10:30, 11, and after a whole day at Warhammer and everything else, you're just like, God, you know, I'm too old to go down Rock City these days and all the rest of it. Not what I want to anymore. I think it's probably not really my vibe anymore. But the point is it was a pretty chilled out one. I watched the UFC though that night. That was fun. Michael Chandler. That was good to watch. Yeah. Woke up at 5 a.m. Watched that. It was good.
That's mad. I slept until 8 something or other because actually it was quite a late start today.
Yeah, we started at 10.
Yeah, I was surprised because the rounds for the doubles was actually changed to 3 hours.
Yeah, but we were done by 5 today, which was good. But yeah, so in the morning we come up against Blood Angels and Ultramarines, ran by who?
Rich and Henry, who were a case of the blue balls. No, sorry. Yeah, of the blue balls. It was a case of the blue balls. Yeah.
I mean, look, those lads...
Oh, no, blue bars it was.
Blue bars.
My typed it in as also corrected bar from Blood Angels to balls.
Love that.
Because that's, again, the adult joke.
The adult joke, indeed.
Yeah.
But, so they were running a big unit of Death Company, led by Lamates.
Oh, yes.
A Land Raider, some Outriders, Reavers,
a Gladiator Lancer.
Yeah, that was on the Ultramarine side. The Ultramarine side had 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, a Lancer, some Hellblasters. It was good stuff.
And an Intercessor squad, I think.
Oh, yeah. And they went crazy hard. Like in their first turn.
Yeah, because they got the first turn.
Yeah, they ran at us.
They were going to send Lamates and Death Company into your squad. Yeah, and I was hoping they were going to send it into the AdMech because then I could have countercharged with my bikes. But they instead, even though they were already decided to charge in a bunch of other stuff into my Wardens, they decided to chuck the Death Company into them as well.
Yeah. It was because he was asking me a load of questions about the Vanguard, and I was like, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to charge into it. I was like, yeah, it's cool.
You scared them off because you said they've got a flamer.
No, I didn't scare them off by that. I scared them off by saying, yeah, it's cool, they're like 70 points. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, it's like a 70-point squad. Why do I care? And he was like, oh, clearly this isn't the thing. You
should have egged up it. But the thing is that 70 point does a lot of really good shooting.
Oh yeah, God, if it's left to do it, which was hilarious.
Which is what happened. So explain what happened then.
Well, basically, I shot them, and then a bunch of them died.
Oh no! They charged my guys in, wiped out pretty much all of my.
It was crazy, Phil. You had literally
I gave them fight on death.
Yeah,
and
not most of the squad. You had 2 members. I'd
fight on death and feel no pain.
But you were attacked. Your squad was attacked by. It was 9 Death Company because 1 died to rad bombardment.
Oh yeah.
9 Death Company. Lamates, a captain who was having his best day ever.
Oh, and then were they the ones I completely tanked on the blade?
Yeah, and then there was
blade champion.
And then there was the champion. And there was all that stuff, and it all went into.
It was so many dice.
And at the end of it, you still had 2. You had a blade champion, and you had
1 Warden left, I think. Yeah, I was quite upset by that.
And then also he charged into my 2 Castellan robots, which was hilarious as well. But anyway, by the end of it all, our counterpunch wasn't that meaningful. We killed a couple of. Well, we actually went all in. Well,
because I did the bikes into them, and you wiped out pretty much most of the Death Company with your shooting.
Yeah, what was the Vanguard? It was
the boat as well.
The boat and the Onager shots of them. So it was a lot of shots into them, and I got lucky in some regards. But anyway, so that all went well.
So we had quite a good bit of pushback, but overall we were losing a lot. But then. Because at one point they still had the Land Raider, the double Redemptors, and the Gladiator Lancer. I'm like, God, there's so much stuff. But then, like a turn later,
most of it was gone.
Everything but the Land Raider was gone. They had, in fact, even at the very end, we'd taken out the bikes, and they had just like one squad of intercessors
How
left.
mad
right?
was it when because I got 2 shots through with the Eradicator beamer on the Lancer, and the Eradicator, the neutron laser on the Onager, and literally they both go through and are on 666, and I'm like, oh, you've taken 16 damage, and he's like, well, that's just dead then. I was like, yeah, I guess it is. So that was pretty mad. But anyway, that game, I'll be honest, we had a little bit of a controversial end to that game.
Yes, so halfway through, we're really down on points. We're behind. I'm like, we can do a secret mission, Dan.
Yeah, we did.
So we decided to do a secret mission, which is the Warlord, which was my bike captain, has to be on their objective, which he basically avoids dying and gets to in the very last turn. And the last 2 turns were played out in about 15 minutes.
Not even that.
They were super rushed. We were over time.
We should have just... The problem
we should have really called it.
We should have diced down after battle round 3 because the game... Basically, after 3 hours, we had only done 3 battle rounds. Whether that was our fault or their fault, no, who can say? But we finished all 3 of our games on Saturday.
Yeah, I was scorekeeping. They weren't doing it, which again I think was a bit of a mistake. We should have both been keeping scores, which is what some of the other games have done. I say to them, oh, they have 75 points, we have 62. You've won, well done. And then I go, oh, hold on, I haven't scored us the secret mission, which I then put in, and I'm like, oh, we have 82, you have 75. And they're like, oh, but we were scoring primaries, which I think I was putting into the app.
Yeah, but the app accounts for that, yeah.
But the app accounts for the fact that actually you don't do your primaries in the last 2 turns when you're doing the secret mission.
The long and short of it is we probably did win that game, but what basically happened is we ended up in one of those situations where we started having the discussion and we basically went, oh, we win with secret mission. And the guys were like, well, how do you score secret mission? What's the primary objective? How does any of this work? Because people don't use secret missions, so it confuses people. They're like, what?
It seems super dubious because I'm just doing the scores myself on my app.
And we were doing all of this under duress. It was all quick. It was all crunchy. It was horrible.
Yeah, and I was getting a bit confused with like, oh my God, what's going on?
So in the end, we just went, you know what, lads? It doesn't matter.
You wanted to go, let's just roll it back 2 turns and ignore it. I just, in the end, was like, I'll just take off the secret mission score and we'll call it at that. So it was 62-75 to them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fine, because to be honest with you, the way I like to really actually normally play is when we finish the battle round, when the game's done, as in like 3 hours has passed, it's done. I just like to go, it's done. Like, let's not waste our time trying to work out what could have happened in 2 turns. But we tried to rapidly play the 2 turns because it didn't feel like there was enough on the tabletop anymore for us not to be able to do it.
Because it felt like it would have been quite quick turns.
And they were. We got it done in like 10 minutes. But the thing is it wasn't done under the best of circumstances. They were a bit frazzled. We were a bit frazzled. The whole thing went a bit weird because, like, without wanting to sound ridiculous, a lot of the time during the game, it felt like, that they were really pushing for the win. And I'm not saying that that's bad or good, but they definitely wanted to win. We wanted to win. But at the end of the day, it was like, you know what? I can't meaningfully defend our position. I can't justify how we won this because so many things happened in such short succession. I was just like, you know what, guys?
Yeah, and here's the thing. If they had also been keeping scores
it could have been
and
avoided.
then gone, cool, we've done the secret mission and they can confirm that on their app, then I think that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But it just seemed really sketchy for me to be like, oh yeah, by the way, we suddenly got 20 points. And that puts us in the win according to my app.
Spoilers, we won. Woo!
Exactly, and that just made me go, okay, that's not.
Yeah, it was just ugly. It was an ugly.
And we didn't want to get into that confrontation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just that thing. It's like, I think at the end of the day, I'm not throwing shade. They were nice guys. We gave them a favourite army vote because they had a really nicely painted Blood Angels and Ultramarines army. So, look, they were good dudes and they were nice and they were pleasant with us the whole way through. They were good dudes. It was just that ultimately, it was just one of those situations. So, we resolved it. No hard feelings. Happy days. Go into our last game and we play against a
Matt
team.
and Alex.
Matt and Alex, who were running Guard.
Yeah, they were the Terran Home Guard, which was Guard and Elder.
Guard and Elder.
Or specifically Yanari.
Yes, Yanari, which is good to see.
Because they had the Incarn.
They did have the Incarn, yeah. And a few Aspect Warriors and various other bits and pieces. But yeah, long story short, with that one...
we got 3 turns.
We got 3 turns of it done.
Because there was a lot of shooting, a lot of guard shooting, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
25 guys shooting can kill a lot of custodian guard, but it takes a good 5+ minutes to roll out all of those dice with re-rolls, with whatever sustained.
I don't think they were slow playing it though. I just think
it's just a lot of stuff to do.
Doubles and everything. So we gelled well. We got on well.
Yeah.
And again, the guard player, who I forget the name of now, was a Lookout Sir listener. This was the game.
Probably Matt, I think. I think it was Matt.
It could have been. But this was the game where
he recognised
my voice, and then we just became more chatty and more nice from there on in. Not that it wasn't nice to begin with, but it became easier, and I think that just sort of elongated things a bit as well. But yeah, and we learned from our game 4. We were literally it got to the end of it, and I was just like, so how do you want to do it, lads? Because ultimately, we're at the end of our round 3. I'm not saying we should do it this way just because doing it this way means we're going to win, but if you look at the lay of the land...
so this was the, I wouldn't say hostile objective. So it was the ordnance, so the objectives move and you basically push the objectives into your opponent's deployment zones to score more points.
Yeah.
By the end of turn 3, we had pushed 1 all the way to theirs, so that would be scoring us 8. They had 1 in the middle, which would have been scoring them 5, I think, and then there was another one that no one was scoring points on because we had hotly fought over. I still had a whole squad of Wardens and a Blade Champion completely fresh that weren't damaged. The other units of mine had gone into dust. You still had a fair bit. They had a fair bit that had come down from Deep Strike in that last turn that hadn't meaningfully impacted the game. So it could have gone either way, and I think they would have liked to have played on, possibly.
Of course they would have.
But it was
took
a
3
bit
hours and did 3 turns. It's like his way, isn't it?
And it was and there was a lot still on the table, so I don't think we could have gone through those turns particularly quickly. That was the issue. If there was maybe 2 units aside, you could have.
And as I said to them, it's like we've won 2, lost 2 this weekend. This game isn't going to determine the overall winner of this event, is it?
And it was also one of our most fun games as well.
Oh yeah, I had a great time with it. And they were great, and they were very accommodating to it, and it was fine. And I think everyone kind of agreed that... Because again, we'd pushed it into a situation where our argument for our win was a lot more secure
because we were up and we had an objective which was massively scoring us on primary above what they could be scoring on the primary, but technically it could have also gone down to secondaries and stuff like that. But
you just don't know.
And that's the point where you can go, but we don't know.
Exactly, and that's the way it went, and that's ultimately how we got our 3rd win.
So it was 35-31.
Oh, it was a good game, though.
So it was close.
It was a good game. I wish in a way we could have got to get it done. Maybe at some point we'll get a chance to meet up with them again and run it back. But overall it was it was a good turnout. We got 3 wins, 2 losses. We're in the positive ratio. Technically, we could have argued maybe we could have gotten 4 wins.
Yes, but
although
I guess that would have determined who you played against in the very last one.
Overall, In terms of BCP points, which is what the cool kids care about, I think we came like 24th.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Out of 68 teams or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that.
So
it was quite a lot.
The upper percentiles, which is always nice.
Yes, that's true.
In the overall scores, the actual scores for Throne of Skulls.
We got 3 favourite game votes.
3 favourite game votes.
4 favourite army votes.
Your Thunder Warriors were pretty beautiful.
And then that,
To be fair, my Abnec looked quite nice as well.
and that put us in 7th
Seventh place overall
of 68 teams.
Pretty good going. And we came 3rd place in the Best Pagan Award.
Yeah, so we got to go into the cabinet, first of all. And then we also got... we were stuffed in the cabinet.
Yeah, exactly.
We got voted on, so there's 2 awards up for this, which is one for staff pick, which we didn't get. That went to the one that basically won it, which was the most deserving.
Yeah, incredible pay. I voted for them.
And then, was it the double Space Marine one?
Yeah, it was the that White Dwarf.
And it had the Inquisition stuff in it as well.
Yes,
didn't it?
yeah.
I voted for them as well. I saw that and immediately was like, yeah, that's winning.
Yeah,
it was that good.
It was so lovely.
Yeah, so it had lots of nice stuff on it.
Yeah, and it was Emperor Scythes as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was really good. But yeah, in terms of the player voted, we got 3rd,
which is amazing.
Which was really nice. We got a little glass trophy.
Was very good.
Yes,
I genuinely think though it was your conversions and your Thunder Warriors are so beautiful. I think it was just that. I mean, basically.
And yours matched and.
Yeah, basically the bases look the same. So it was like, the 2 together are okay. You know.
Yes, yeah, I can see.
So yeah, overall it was good, man. It was a good weekend. We did well, had good games, felt good about it. I think ultimately it was a lot of fun. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
opponents.
there definitely overall. I still say I am enjoying playing 40k.
I am too.
It's good fun. I like a lot of it. However, there are times where I'm like, oh, this rules interaction is very unfun. When I'm on the receiving end of and this happened in a couple of games, the receiving end of being over-momented.
Yeah.
And everything has rerolls. People have lethal hits and sustained hits against you. They are not only re-rolling the misses, but they're also re-rolling everything because they're fishing the 6s. That is particularly egregious to me.
Yeah, there's
and it's not a very nice feeling to be on the receiving end of that. And sometimes I'm sort of mentally checking out briefly because I'm just like, oh god. And then obviously got to get back into the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of mechanics within the game that really irritate you.
Yeah.
And also, there are too many models. That is obviously a fiscal decision by the company in order to make more money. But yeah, like these days, the amount of stuff is just a bit mad. Also as well, I think the frustrating thing I find, 40k requires a lot of terrain.
Oh, yes.
But I find that people's interactions with that terrain tends to go like this.
Different.
When it's your turn, as in like in this case me and Phil's turn, and you're our opponent, anything we try and do is met with an excuse or a reason why it can't be done. And when it's your turn, our opponent's turn in this example, all of a sudden everything is achievable. It always feels like every time you have to discuss and debate terrain, it's always very like there's a lot of politics to managing the way that you maneuver around the board, and line of sight's ridiculous.
Yeah.
God, the amount of conversations you have about line of sight.
And there's lots of people doing, and I get it, it's a tournament to an extent, but there are people that the whole I'm an inch behind terrain.
Oh yeah.
So it's almost impossible to charge. And because everything's a ruin on a footprint.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunities to do that. Which aren't really particularly thematically 40k. There was one game where plunging fire was used against us with a stone guard, which was interesting. Haven't seen that rule ever take place in 40k, so that was great.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think again, 40k is far from perfect. I do think AOS is a easier game to play in a tournament setting, just because of some of the more uniform design decisions.
Because I think we've played a fair bit of 40k that we're quite comfortable. So Richie and Spike haven't played much 40k in a long time.
Yeah.
So they found the deck missions very complicated to set up. The objectives and objective placement very difficult to do. The number of deployment zones, the primary and the secondary, all very complex and overwhelming. And I think I remember when 10th came, I had that issue as well, but I sort of played it enough that I've just gotten used to it.
Yeah.
And I use the app as a hand-holding device to manage the point scoring, because to me, it's impossible to play without the app. Because one, the app actually helps you decipher what you need to do to actually score sometimes, because the wording of the cards are sometimes quite difficult to work out, and the app will just tell you, have you done this? And you go, oh yes, that's what I've done. Okay, so it's a lot more straightforward.
Indeed. Well, look, that was that. We've arrived at Castle Phil.
I'm home.
We are going to call it there. Lord only knows if there'll be any more content within this podcast this week. It will probably just be this.
Possibly.
It's going to be one of those random weeks where we're not putting out an episode, we're just putting out a
little
weird
thing.
Yeah, a little thing. Because, so Phil's in a weird transitional point where recording's complicated because of changes to his personal circumstances.
My shed. You make it sound like I've died.
Well, you haven't died, evidently.
I haven't died. I'm
Maybe
the ghost. I'm haunting.
Died or something. That would be sad.
No, but my shed is no longer my new shed.
In a way, that's probably more impactful to you than a death.
Actually, it is, yeah. Because basically, I can't hobby at all for at least a month.
Oh my God.
So that is pretty bad.
Crazy.
But we will try and
get together
to do more recordings properly for future episodes.
We will.
Maybe there'd be a very brief intro explanation for this, but if not, it's this bit here.
Yeah, if it is, I will do it solo, I
or
suppose.
you could do it solo,
Yeah,
but I might be able to do a little daytime recording.
Yeah, we can probably get together, do like an outro thing, which if we have done, we'll do after this, or at least an intro. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's just my schedule over the next week is pretty intense, so I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, it's down to you, Dan. I'm blaming you now. It's not me.
It's not. What are you talking about? It's entirely down to you. When I travel for work, I'm able to find the time to record.
I'll make time to record. I can make time to record if you're about.
As long as it's within the hours of the office.
No. I think I can probably do an early afternoon.
Anyway, look, there it is.
We'll see.
Whatever that was, it's done now. Hopefully, it doesn't sound too awful. I've still got to drive for another bit, so I'm going to go do that now. But you can't see us doing it. But well done, Phil. Good game.
Well, thank you. Good game. It was very nice. Shake hands.
There, lovely stuff. And then that will do. All right. Do we transition?
Yeah, do a transitional noise.
Transitional noise.
All right, it's the end of episode 202, although you know better than that. It's the outro bit. We weren't content with just, cobbling together a bit of a chinwag while travelling home from Warhammer World. We decided, as ever, that it can't be an episode of Lookout Sir without at least an intro, outro, and or 5-star review. So here's the outro bit. We hope you enjoy. Don't we, Phil? Don't we?
Yeah. I mean, I managed to get a temporary recording set up in my lounge. So it's doable, basically. So we can still do the episodes for the foreseeable future until my new schedule.
I love how you sort of describe your situation as if you're under the kibosh, as they say, isn't it? That the terminology, you're being heavily monitored for your behaviour.
I mean, my volume is. That's about it. Got to whisper, everyone.
Got to whisper. Don't upset the teenager.
No, she's not here today, so it's fine.
Oh, is that how you've got away with it?
No. Well, I think it helps.
It definitely doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. But, Warhammer World was fun. You heard about all of that, hopefully. I haven't actually gotten around to editing that audio yet, but Phil has sent me a handy link that suggests that he should be able to, or it should be able to, remove some of the background noise. So we live in hope, don't we, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. If not, it's just going to sound terrible and you'll just have to put up with it.
Absolutely. Like whatever gruel we serve you. That is the way of things. But yeah, it's Emperor's Children this weekend. We got to see some of those miniatures in person over the weekend at Warhammer World. And it's fair to say that the Fulgrim Mini, when seen in the plastic, isn't too bad, to be fair. Looks a little better than maybe we were suggesting before.
Yeah, I mean, it still has some flaws, but I think I would overall push up my opinion of it for sure. It's like,
Absolutely.
Overall, like, great silhouette, gorgeous, but there are elements of the details, like the leathery sausage body is the best way I describe it, and the weird open wound that don't look great still. They're all just in comparison to the Forge World one, right, which is a high bar that has been set. I've seen so Tabletop Tactics did a great paint job on theirs. They showed off their version that they did. Was it Fletcher earlier this week? And that's like super gruesome and gory, inspired by one of the Joker covers, I think.
The new 52 Joker where he peeled his own face off.
Yeah, so they sculpted some flesh on his face, basically, but the actual goriness of the open wound section and the body looks really good. And I think it, as we sort of speculated, potentially sometimes it's just the paint job versus the miniature itself. And they had a couple on show of alternative colour schemes. Like I think there's a kind of goldy bronze one and a white one, and they actually look really nice. I think overall I still don't like just the general chaosy aesthetic, like the weird, the weapons that look like faces and the cone heads on the blade champion type people. Stuff like that just isn't really for me. But then it's like, I'm not someone that collects chaos, so those things I think are just aesthetics that will appeal to someone else but not me. So it's like, they're fine is the grand scheme thing. They're fine because they're for someone else.
Exactly. They ain't too bad, but they ain't for you, is I suppose the way that goes. But so it was nice to see those, and hopefully people get their hands on Fulgrim and Lucius and all of that fun, and we'll soon start seeing more Emperor's Children taking to the table. I feel like I should apologise, by the way, because I can feel it within myself that I'm very snotty right now. I have definitely been suffering with post-event lurgy. I blame Phil entirely because he was actually sick on the way up. So rather than blaming the fact that I was in a room full of many people, I'm just going to blame my relative close, consistent proximity to Phil.
That's fine. I mean, I feel
that's
like
what friends do.
I feel like my voice still hasn't quite fully recovered from the weekend of talking to people, plus the cold that I also have. I'm mostly over, but it's hanging on in there.
It is a weird one. Like I think I may have said when we were recording our section on it, the volume in Warhammer World is a bit mad because lots of people, especially when you're doing a doubles, right? I mean, there was about 70 teams in attendance, which is 140 players, and then you add to the 140 voices the fact that it is still a fully functioning tourist attraction / very busy retail outlet during the first weekend of the Easter holiday period here in the United Kingdom. In fact, I think it might have been the middle weekend, but whatever the case, it was a pretty busy and loud space, and they have these really high ceilings, so you do really need to project, don't you, Phil, all the time?
Yeah, you're talking quite loudly constantly.
Yes, exactly, which isn't such an issue for me, but definitely does damage the old vocal cords over prolonged sessions, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yes, no, so apologies if I sound all sort of nasally and snotty, because I am. What was I going to say? So they've released new drop pods this week, Phil. What did you reckon of those?
Oh yeah,
or rather, they haven't released them. They've just shown
them.
that they're doing them.
Yeah, I was sort of weird. This is going to be a hot take. Weirdly disappointed that they haven't really redesigned them, so they look very faithful to the originals, with the exception of the inside bit has been redesigned. So there's more stuff on the inside, even though they've taken out the weapons. And then sort of towards the top of the outside bit where the door would close into, you've now got a space for some symbols that you can make ultramarines or aquillas, that are the two that they've shown off. The aquillas clearly don't really fit in that space because they sort of overlap slightly, whereas the ultramarine symbol, because it's square, fits in much better. Like, those are the two design aesthetic changes that they've really done. And I was sort of hoping for something a bit more Primaris-y, because it's like, it basically feels like they are backtracking slightly on the whole Primaris thing, because before they were like, here is your new Rhino that's called an Impulsor, and here are all these other vehicles that are similar-ish to the old ones, but like new and improved and drastically changed, and all the, you know, you got your intercessors and everything like that. And then sort of when it's come to the Terminators, they've gone, oh, they're just Terminators. And when it comes to like Stern Guard, it's just Stern Guard. And I'm sort of fine with those because it's sort of marks of armor. But with the vehicles, I really thought they were gonna, just change the design ever so slightly to maybe make it a bit more sleek or more robust or something. And it's odd that it's just the same thing. And then it comes in. So there's two things. One, it comes with some craters that you can attach to it. Two, the doors are always open, so you can't even functionally just close it. So from a transporting point of view, that's going to be a bit annoying, even though for gameplay mechanics, it sort of makes sense that you have to have the doors open. And also, they sell them in sets of two.
Yeah.
What's your take on the drop pod? I mean, it's good that it's still in the game, but it's like it's already still in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's already still in the game and no one uses it because the rules that they've created for it really, you know, the way the game is, it just doesn't really create much of a necessity to utilize it because there's not really a great deal that it does for you. But
yeah, there's two things. That one is that there's too much terrain on kind of competitive tables or standard tables that it would be difficult for it to fit anywhere. And something we talked about for a while is the game's been designed to give you so many ways of moving around the table that don't actually require vehicles, like whether it's things that deep strike, things that come in from reserve, things that, you know, come from the tunnels or whatever. And a lot of those things can come on turn, 2 onwards, effectively just deep striking. And a lot of factions have access to lots of those abilities. So the functionality of drop pods, along with the sort of table size also going down, means it's not as important as it used to be in previous games. At all.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, it's a weird thing to get. I'm also intrigued by what this means for the drop pod in Horus Heresy and what they're doing in that space, because obviously drop pods are, although not very... they're a bigger thing than they are in 40k right now.
Yeah.
Drop pods in Heresy have never really been the bleeding edge of the meta game within Heresy.
No.
They've had a lot of risks associated with them, and they've been quite, viewed with a relative level of sort of skepticism by the narrative Heresy players that seem to only ever run the most optimal lists. But that might just
I sort of got the general impression that the tweaks they made to deep striking and the things that can sort of make it like a disordered deep strike meant it was actually very difficult for deep strike to really be very effective in this edition of the game. But it's like, it's meant to be a big thing. Like, you can buy the units in Legions Imperialis and you get the missile pods, and they did the shield generator version as well, which was really interesting, and the Dreadnought drop pods. So you would assume that because they've appeared in Legions Imperialis, there would also be a 30k sort of, full-scale version available down the line as a multi-part kit, which would be really cool to see if they do that. But yeah, it's a bit odd that and again, that's why it's odd that they haven't changed the design enough to be more distinct. And I guess we haven't seen if the scale's actually changed or if it's the same as it currently is.
I mean, my assumption is it's basically the same, but obviously that could be wrong. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because will they take the old drop pod kit and move it over to Heresy specifically? Obviously, they've had instances where 40k kits are repackaged and sold as Heresy. The only actual example I can think of for that is the Imperial Knight, but the Imperial Knight is packaged in Heresy packaging for specific sale.
The standard Knights.
The standard one.
Oh, really? Is there a Heresy box version of it? Oh, I didn't realise.
There is a Heresy box version of that, yeah.
It does.
Well, because I was intrigued when I saw it, because I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And I thought it was like there would be something special in it, but it's just, basically, it's an Imperial Knight with Heresy era transfer sheets, basically.
Okay. I assume and I'm sure we've had this conversation before, the Valley and the Plasmary one aren't Heresy compatible.
Quite possibly.
I assume they're maybe, I don't know, later variants or something. I don't know what the difference is between which ones make it to be Heresy and which ones aren't.
Yeah. Again, I'm pretty. I've not spent nearly enough time playing the Horus Heresy game, which is a real pity, to be fair. But the Age of Darkness Knight Questoris is the name of it in Heresy, and it comes in its own little special box, and its contents includes the regular sprue for a paladin and or an errant. Oh, and it does come with the kit to make the warden / gallant, and it does still come with the stuff to make the paladin as well, with Sir Hector as well, or a pilot mini. So it is literally just the Imperial Knight kit, but it comes in a nice Heresy themed box. But anyway, my point is that they have, as a result of this, at least taken established Citadel kits and repackaged them for Heresy purposes. Will they do that? Will they basically take the new drop pod kit and maneuver it into Heresy, or will they basically keep the old kit for Heresy and keep producing it that way? Because it would be a bit frustrating if this new drop pod wasn't compatible with the rules of Heresy, and then they stopped selling the old ones. But I'm sure they thought about that. I'm sure it's not a problem. I'm sure everything will be fine. But that was the only thing that really came to mind about it. Otherwise, I was like, yeah, cool, drop pods, who cares? No one's running them. No one cares about them. They used to be cool because they were. And when you see them in games like Space Marine 2, you go, yeah, drop pods, woo, Space Marines, yeah. But on the tabletop, they're just pretty underwhelming. Yeah. But they are getting a new data sheet, which implies that they could be incredible. That does tend to be a Games Workshop trick, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't. Like, what can you actually give to them? Like, they've lost the weapons. So here's the thing: you can either make them come down within 9 inches, so maybe they come in within 6 or 3 or whatever.
6 would be the go-to.
Yeah, if they did that, then it becomes suddenly more viable and a bit more interesting. The fact that
come down within 6.
The fact that they've sold them in 2s, though, does that mean you'd have to take them in 2s? Because that's sort of normally the thing. Like, you don't normally get sold something and only have the option of taking half of it as a data sheet. My theory is the reason why they're selling them in 2s. So the current drop pod, £34. I reckon the new one will be like 60 quid for 2. So it feels like technically it's a saving, but really they're upselling you and making you spend like another like 20 odd quid 25 quid that you wouldn't otherwise spend.
Yeah. I think that's probably the case. And I think, there could be some interesting rules they give it. Maybe it could have like
do some damage.
An ammo cache rule where, any unit within 6 inches of it gets to reroll ones to wound or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, I mean, to be honest with you, a thing that would give it a lot more viability is an OC. Even if it was OC 1, it would be a meaningful change to the drop pod.
I wouldn't be surprised if it does like mortal wound damage on stuff nearby when it lands.
And also, if they this is the thing, if they made it OC1 and they made it tough, it could be interesting because all of a sudden you could just be going, cool, turn 1, couple of drop pods on the objectives, toughness 12, 2 up armor, 10 wounds each, and then all of a sudden you're like, flipping heck. Because, these things got to be durable. They are dropping through the atmosphere. It's not a massive hop, skip, and a jump to suggest that they could be double hard.
No, it's true. That is true.
But no, anyway, look, I mean, whatever. I think when it comes to things like this, it's cool that GW are continuing to innovate and to refresh their ranges. They have said that this kit is easier to build than the current drop pod, which is an interesting statement by the people from Warhammer community, because typically, in my experience, unless it's an easy-to-build kit, which maybe this is, Games Workshop kits of late have never been easier to make than their historic counterparts. Like, I was building Mortarion recently. He is a nightmare. All modern Games Workshop kits are nightmares.
Because it's just so many pieces.
Oh my god! Like, they just seem to just. I mean, don't get me wrong. The end result is gorgeous miniatures, but flipping hell, it's a lot of bits, But anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, so new drop pods. Interesting to see what happens with them in Heresy. Interesting to see if they give them good rules that people can't deny, and thus take it more.
Yeah, I wonder if this is the first of the wave of redoing the vehicles, but it's so odd if they're just redoing it and it's sort of exactly the same but slightly better. Like, I could almost understand it more with like a Land Raider maybe, where they just update the design, where like the details are a bit crisper, like the rivets are a bit nicer looking, same with like the weapons maybe, but ultimately it's the same classic Land Raider chassis. Maybe the size is tweaked ever so slightly or something, but they go, here you go.
I mean,
so maybe they
if they made the Land Raider kit bigger, I think it would be unplayable in the game of 40k as it is right now. Certainly on some of the terrain layouts. I mean, as it was when we were playing at Warhammer World, we were having to say to our opponents who did take Land Raiders, they were like starting to get all kind of annoyed because they were like, oh, I can't quite squeeze through this gap. And we were like, don't worry about it, mate, just drive through it. Yeah. But, people do get very irate about that whole situation, and understandably, because, whatever. But, yeah, it's interesting. Other things that are interesting, Phil, there's 2 things that are interesting about this. One, that they've done it stealthily, and 2, that they've done it at all, and that is the Soulblight Gravelord Battle Tome Supplement, which is mad. This is just... So we're recording this on Thursday, the 17th of April. Games Workshop have stealth dropped a supplement to Soulblight Gravelords, a Battle Tome that is coming out this Saturday via an early access box. So you can't buy Soulblight Gravelords via, normal means. You have to get the Death Rattle box, which Phil will be a proud owner of soon. Are you getting that delivered or picking it up in a shop, Phil?
No, I got it from Element Games, so it should be being posted to me, which probably means I'll get it Monday or Tuesday.
Well, yeah, but anyway, all those things being equal, it's exciting. There's a new book coming for the Soulblight Gravelords, but one of the things that people were complaining about was that a lot of the Cursed City stuff and a lot of the kind of established old cool vampire stuff has all been basically squatted, to use the old vernacular, and people were understandably disappointed about that. Now, at the start of Age of Sigmar's 4th edition, Games Workshop were very transparent about the fact that they were going to be removing a bunch of Stormcast Eternals, as well as Bone Splitters and Skaven. They were very honest with us about it. Beastmen, they were like, oh, that's going. Don't get too attached to it. And they were quite transparent about it. However, since then, they've done things like Slaves to Darkness, where a couple of units from Slaves to Darkness have been removed. And they've done things like Auric War Clans, where, to be honest with you, they haven't really removed anything from Auric War Clans other than Bone Splitters, which they told us they were going to do. So maybe that's not a great example. But Slaves to Darkness did lose, like, Sorcerer on Manticore. They lost another geezer that I forget the name of, but it was like a big monster carrying a chariot type thing. What was that thing called, Phil? Do you even remember?
Big monster carrying a chariot?
Well, it was like carrying like a plinth, and it was like a big scary
was it
beast.
like the Vortex thing?
No, well, maybe. Anyway, the point is Soulblight Gravelords, not Soulblight Gravelords, Slaves to Darkness lost some stuff, but Games Workshop seemingly didn't publicise that to the extent that people were upset about it. Although people are upset about it, right? There are people out there who, may have owned or purchased Manticore, Sorcerer Lords for their armies recently that obviously are not happy about it. Richie is one such example. Yeah. He wasn't thrilled.
Well, he bought something else to proxy the model because he didn't like the old one.
Well, he specifically converted a miniature to basically, meet the brief to be more what he was looking for. So he spent quite a bit of money on doing that conversion, only to discover that it's not in the book. So he was thrilled. And, Slaves to Darkness did also lose a bunch of different variants of the old Warcry stuff as well. They lost, like, the Iron Golems. They lost, they lost lots of things that they used to have access to. But they didn't care so much about Slaves to Darkness. But in the case of Soulblight Gravelords, clearly they were listening, and they've released this supplement to try and placate people, which is great because this is the same treatment as what they did for Bone Splitters and for Stormcast Eternals. So that's great, although obviously it would be cool if they could support all their miniatures in perpetuity, but we understand that that's not realistic, and we're not the sort of, podcasters who are going to, stand on our, or die on that particular hill. We get it.
Speak for yourself, Dan.
That's true. That is more of a me thing. Phil, as a legacy Forge World collector, is forever angered about the fact that he can't run his obscure tank kit from 20 years ago.
It's not even that. It's like, so in the example of Soulblight Gravelords, I purchased Kado Ezekiel in January when I was last at Warhammer World. This year, this model is like 2 years old. The Cursed City stuff came out in 3rd edition, so is, I guess you could say at a push it is at max like 4 years old, perhaps. I think Cursed City is probably maybe around 3-4 years old. So they're not old sculpts by any measure. And I think it's quite, reasonable. There's a reasonable expectation that when you buy something, it is valid for a reasonable length of time greater than 1 or 2 years. If they had announced these at the start of the edition, that wouldn't have been a problem, at least for me, because I wouldn't have bought them. Or in January, I dusted off my loft copy of Cursed City, and I've been thoroughly enjoying building the miniatures in preparation for my Death Rattle box to arrive, and I can start a Soulblight Gravelords army. I bought the White King, and that was fine because I knew full well in advance they had said that model was going. So I bought it knowing it was going because it was a cool sculpt. Kado Ezekiel, it's a cool sculpt, yeah, but I bought it because I wanted to have him on the tabletop as him, not as generic vampire lord. And same with Curse City stuff. I've been building it not because I really want to play Curse City. I've been building it because I want them to be in my Sobolite Gravelord's army. So it's really gutting that they sort of haven't announced it or talked about it, and that they've done it sort of by stealth, but two, that they've just made these sort of terrible decisions in the first place. And, you know, I sort of get it if there's bloat or whatever in the game and that they want to find ways of removing data sheets. But it's like a rod that they've created, and the in perpetuity that I think they should stick with is, if you're going to create a model for a game, you've got to support that. And, you know, that's your decision that you made. You want to sell that model, great, but you've got to keep selling it, or at the very least, you've got to keep supporting it for a long period of time. Because
I do agree with that, Phil. And to be fair, right, like, I do think the general rule should be, as a business, Games Workshop should be very clear about, like, miniatures and their kind of longevity, I suppose. Because that's the thing, right? I agree with you. It's unacceptable for them to stop supporting miniatures that are less than 10 years old. Say that number,
yeah.
Right? Like, you think about that. So, at the end of the day, and also as well, it's really ridiculous in the case of the not Soulblight Gravelords, but the Stormcast Eternals, where they went, we're going to get rid of this unit of Stormcast Eternals with double-handed axes to replace it with this unit of Stormcast Eternals with single axes and shields. It's like, it's the same thing, guys. Like, what are you doing? Like, why is that you had to, you know, like, why is it that you had to do it that way? Because you're not of, you know, it's just, that's the thing that drives me crazy about Stormcast as a range at the moment is the fact that all they seem to do is come up with the same variants of, you know, unit, because there's only so much you can do with Stormcast Eternals, right? They're either going to carry a hammer, a sword, an axe, a spear. You know, at that point, you're like, well, okay, cool. What other variant of weapon can you give it at that point? Yeah, sure, you could give it a bomby knocker. I love saying bomby knocker.
Is that an actual weapon?
Yeah, bomby knocker's a real weapon, mate. Do you not know the bomby knocker?
I do not know.
How does a man of your persuasion not know what a bomby knocker is?
Let me look it up and hope I don't end up on a terrible website.
Some sort of... It's a BOMMY knocker. Not knockers, Phil.
No, okay. If I go images... Oh, it's a spiked maul. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
See, I would just call that a spiked maul. Or Morning Star.
Wow, it's always been a bomby knocker to me.
Okay.
I don't know why it's always been a bomby knocker to me, but that's what... I think it was maybe a show back in the 80s where one of the characters referred to it as a bomby knocker.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Maybe Thundercats or something of that nature. But anyway, my point is, though, is if you gave a Stormcast Eternal a spiked maul, it probably starts to look a little bit too chaotic, I suppose. So really, within the noble pantheon of acceptable weaponry for a Stormcast, it really only has the option of axe, sword, hammer, and spear, right? Like, I don't really know what other weapon you could give it.
They haven't done gunpowder weapons, like guns.
No, that's true. They've done crossbows and arrows.
And bows, that's their vibe, because they're celestial, lightning bolt style.
And they've done the kind of javelin-esque spears as well, obviously. But my point is there's only so many flavours of them that you can come up with, and they're in this situation with Stormcast where I do genuinely hope that they get off the Stormcast train moving forwards. I know they're not going to, but I hope they do. But that one was crazy because literally they got rid of a load of stuff to replace it with the same stuff, which was just mind-boggling. In the case of Soulblight Gravelords, I do agree with you that it's a shame that miniatures that are less than 10 years old are no longer supported.
Yeah,
I think what's a shame about it is I'll just say this, when Age of Sigmar first came out, or even Age of Sigmar 2, they did a lot more work at diversifying the portfolio of options within factions. There was a lot more kind of like, there's this type of undead thing, and there's this type of undead thing. And over time, they've homogenized it into, these are Bone Reapers, these are Nighthaunt, and these are Soulblight Gravelords. And Soulblight Gravelords had become a bit of a smorgasbord for most stuff, but it obviously got to the point where they felt like it was even bloated still. So rather than doing what I would have called the sensible thing and separated maybe vampires into their own book, and then maybe like, you know,
well, yeah, you could argue like,
Death
Rattle could be its own thing.
Yeah,
because what was interesting, the Cursed City really gave them this the Vikos faction, which is like the wolf of vampires, which was like a really interesting and new take on what a vampire is. It's not very traditional. It's basically mashing up werewolves and vampires into one. That's really, really interesting. And actually removing Cursed City takes away 90% of that faction. You've got a couple of characters. Yeah, you've got Belladamma, who's the main one, as well as Radakar the Beast. And you've still got Radakar the Wolf, who's the one sole surviving model from Cursed City, because basically he was on his own sprue. And I'm sort of a bit surprised that they're not just giving us the other sprues, a bit like how they've done like the Champions of the Chapter or something. They've done it for like Stormcast and Skaven, Necrons and Space Marines, I think, where they've taken one of those, launch box titles where it's multi-sprues of stuff all on one, and they've just sold that for like 60 quid because it's like a bunch of characters and like a unit. It's like, I'm surprised they haven't done that with Cursed City and just sort of split them out and go, yeah, cool, we're going to allow you to buy them in a way that isn't just via Cursed City, so it would be a bit more accessible. Because it's a shame. It's such a cool concept for the faction. It's a shame to sort of lose it, really. It's sort of that's just disappointing. I'd almost rather, if Games Workshop are going to do this kind of stuff in future, that they go, okay, every time a unit comes out, they go, cool, this is mainline or this is limited. Limited is like, cool, it's a commemorative thing, it's a Black Library thing, you'll get rules for it, but probably just for this edition, and then it's a Legends thing, or it isn't anything. And you know up front when you purchase that product whether it's going to be a unit that's going to stick around forever because it's mainline, therefore it's in the codex and it's never going to leave, like, infantry models, like, your let's say your Death Korps of Krieg infantry, that's going to be in that codex forevermore. It's never leaving because it's always going to be a unit that's going to be supported. It might get updated in the future, but I think that's people can then have a confidence in buying something if they know that it's going to still be valid in 10 years' time or not, and if they're going to enjoy buying these one-off, slightly mad, interesting units that maybe is really for Warcry, for Underworlds, but they know it being told up front that, yeah, this is a limited product and is only going to be valid for like a year or an edition. And at least it's that upfront knowledge that gives people, it's just good consumer practice, right? It's like, it's not difficult. And I'm sort of, I understand why Games Workshop sort of feels like it's great to muddy the water, because ultimately it gives them more sales. Because, I've been, up until now, a die-hard Nighthaunt player, buying all the Nighthaunt models because I want to collect every model that there is. But when the Pyroblasters, I want to say they're called, I can't remember the exact name, Pyromancers, the Warcry specific one, when that came out, I was like, I'm not going to buy them. Because you know what? They're not going to support those rules like by the next edition, and it will take me ages to paint them up. So why bother? I have lost consumer confidence in Games Workshop to support products, so I'm just not going to buy it. Whereas if I had it, then maybe I would buy it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? They definitely do like to operate in the abstractions of lack of information, I suppose. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're putting out misinformation, but I think they definitely do their best to obscure the extent to which things are being supported. Because that's the thing, they would probably look at it and go, oh, yeah, but if we did designate some kind of specific kind of consumer messaging that's said to our customers that this is a limited release and will only be supported. Well, we can only guarantee that these miniatures will be supported as is within the confines of this current edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. That would then them being one, acknowledging that there is a finite time period to this edition of Age of Sigmar. They don't typically like to even refer to the fact that we're in an edition, right? Like they do early doors, but you'll notice like when they're doing new editions, they don't really ever actually numeralize it. They basically just go new edition.
Yeah, and they always and that I think is quite confusing from a consumer point of view or collector, but from their point of view, they've always said, "Oh, we don't want to confuse people by saying what edition a game is. We just want to call it the new edition because that's the one to buy into, basically." But again,
and it obviously is working.
Knowing
for them, right?
that 40k is on the 10th edition makes you go, "Oh, cool." So this is definitely only going to be valid for so many years because 11th edition is around the corner, right? Which, as you say, plays into their hands somewhat. I
mean, at the moment, though, if you look at their kind of averages, I suppose, I don't know when Warhammer 40,000 came out. When was it? Was it in the 80s?
It would have been, yeah.
Was it like 88 or something it came out? I feel like 83 was significant because I feel like that was sort of when maybe the original Warhammer came out. I can't remember.
1987, as quick Google search says. Yeah, 1987.
Oh, fine. So basically they've done 10 editions of Warhammer 40,000 in 38 years. So, yeah, okay. All right, fine, yeah. So
which averages to 3.8, which shows you that there were quite a few editions that weren't. That were probably more like 5 years.
Yeah, well, third edition went from 97 to I want to say 2002 or something.
But then didn't 6th edition last 2 years?
6th edition lasted a year and a half, 2 years. 7th edition was crazy long, but I think that was probably still 3 or 4 years maybe. But yeah, basically ever since the 8th edition of Warhammer 40,000, they've been like clockwork.
Yeah.
Come June every 3 years, new Warhammer 40,000. That's the crazy thing, right? Literally now it's April, soon to be May, so we're basically now in the final year of this edition because they're going to start teasing or announcing 11th edition 40k this time next year. In fact, they will have announced it already. They will have done it at Adepticon because they always do it there, don't they?
Oh,
and even though they're announcing Warhammer 40,000, it'll still go out at 3 a.m. in the freaking morning because they're lunatics who don't seem to understand how to announce a product.
Yeah, possibly.
I just drives me crazy that it's like why are you going out at 3 a.m? It's the thing I can't get my head around is you're quite a big deal at Adepticon. How is it that you can't seemingly convince them to put you on earlier? It's I'm sure you've got a bit of pull. Someone in your events team needs to have a little bit more of a conviction in yourself. I'm sure if you turned around to Adepticon and said, "We need to go out at 9 a.m. the equivalent
10.
of," put it on at a time which means that, I don't know. It's just madness.
Maybe they've just got their mad reasons for it, but.
Who knows? Who knows their mad reasons? But anyway, look, on the Soulblight Gravelords front, I am happy that those miniatures are being supported till June. I think, ultimately, it's still not necessarily great, but it's better than them just being removed altogether.
Yes.
Ultimately, I can't pretend that this is a net positive, because it obviously isn't. But I think this is better than what we thought we were getting. The only thing that's weird to me, though, and again, I reserve judgment because maybe, because of the bank holiday weekend here in the UK, they uploaded the download files today, and the article supporting them will be released tomorrow.
I assume so. It's odd that they've announced it without an article, which is odd, which I think is maybe
or anything.
A mistake. It's great, as you say, that they have done it. In fairness, I assumed it was just going to be a copy and paste from the old one, which for the most part it is, but actually some of the characters have had their rules rewritten and have like an extra ability and stuff like that. But I sort of feel like, in terms of the characters, these were often... Actually, I think Gorslav was actually quite good, but some of them were quite weak and weren't very good, and they're still just as rubbish. So it's like no one's taking them because they're just not great. However, what I really miss out on the fact is they had some cool units in there, like the Vargskaya and was it the Bloodborne? Like the three guys with the rapiers.
And they've got better, by the way.
Have they? I thought they were the same.
Yeah, so it used to be their move at the end of the movement phase ability. Move at the end of enemy turn ability was triggered on a free
up. Yeah. Oh, and now it just happens.
Now it just happens.
Okay, so they have tweaked that as well. I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
I think the problem with them is they're just a bit too squishy for what they do, but they're kind of cool.
Yeah, but when they're movement 8 and they're still vampires, right? So they've still got the
+1 to hit and wound when they charge.
Well, do they still get the regen thing, or is that actually been
that should be,
them?
but that's in the main book.
Oh yes, yeah, but they are still vampires, so they will still benefit from that ability. I quite like the tweaks they've made to the Lord on Zombie Dragon. I like the fact that when it charges in, and you might tell me this is what it has anyway, but I'm fairly sure it isn't. When it charges in, it reduces the control score of the enemy by 5. Is that what it had?
Let me have a quick look because it's still on the app, I believe. So he has a passive. That's just his claws attacks going to half. Subtract. When this unit charges for the rest of the turn, subtract 1 from the control score of enemy units while they're in combat. Now it's mine. Now it's 5, which is way better. Yeah.
Loads better. Like, that's the thing. Like, I was pleasantly surprised by that because, that felt like a meaningful change to that. I didn't even realise it had the -1 before, though. But
it's like a 10-point differential because you're basically giving them -5 or potentially up to -5 and you're +5.
Yeah. Well, again, when you think about most 2-3 wound infantry units are still only control 1 these days. I think most units become control 2 once they become 5 wounds or more.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there's not it's not always universally true. They do, tweak it depending on, army composition, various variables. But yeah, so no, I thought that was quite cool. I think on the whole, I was genuinely quite happy with the with the release. Again, though, the thing is obviously it will eventually go away. But I do think you're right. Like, some of the units will still probably see some play. The Bloodborne do seem like they've got some viability, and they're not too crazy from a points perspective. It seems, at least not based on the current pointings, which have also been released. Have you reviewed the points? Phil, started to theory craft?
No, I will wait until I get the codex and I can plug them into the app, and then I'll start, coming up with some lists. Although, to be fair, I'm somewhat in a slump. Like, I was originally very excited about this army, but the lack of support for the Cursity stuff, plus the character that I bought as well. God, what's his name again?
It's killed it for you.
It's taken the shine off, put it that way. Ezekiel, that's it. It's taken the shine off of it for sure. It's just made me go, oh, great. Here's the thing. I did think earlier, if they remove moved Hex Wraiths from Nighthaunt, which is like 70% of my army, I'm almost like I will almost throw my toys out the pram. I will set fire to my armies, and I won't play AOS ever again.
Wow, that's the gauntlet.
Almost, but not quite. But it's just a kicker. It's like, I'll kick me while I'm down, guys. Here's the thing: I really hope that they get new kits, and that they don't also go to Legends. But it will be a real bummer, and it's like, it is annoying. I was super excited for Soulblight Gravelords, and I think I will be when the box comes and I can look at the Death Rattle, because that was originally my focus, and the Curse City stuff was like a nice to have. But I got really excited about it because I was building them, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. So yeah, it has taken the shine off of it ever so slightly. And it'll be interesting to see what they also do with the Nighthaunt, because my army is mostly Hex Wraiths, which I spent absolutely ages converting up. So if they do go, that will be a real shame.
Yeah, I mean, that's about it, isn't it?
I don't think they will, because they've got quite some horse-based characters, so it would make sense that they have a horse-based sort of like generic unit.
But regardless of whether they do or they don't, and I agree with you, like, I don't think they will, but what a ridiculous situation to find yourself in, and what a crazy thing to do to a game that is, don't get me wrong, performing well in the general sense, but, the idea that you're trying to nurture a player base and trying to bring people in and trying to get them excited about a game that people aren't taking a chance on because, they've got their preconceived ideas about what AOS is and why it's not fun, but, I think AOS is a phenomenal game. I love it, but the thing is you're right. Like, what ridiculous situation to put themselves in, where through their, malpractice, through their own stupidity, they've essentially created a situation that someone like you, who genuinely enjoys the game, who's invested a lot of time, effort, and money into it, is genuinely concerned and exploring the possibility that they may need to essentially drop it because of really bad business decisions by Games Workshop. Yeah. Like that is it's crazy.
But it's also it's also mad that you go, okay, so AOS 1, yes, there was lots of things disappeared from fantasy, right? But if you go AOS 1 fresh, just looking at the brand new miniatures, it's taken them just 3 editions to start undoing everything from that they had built up, in terms of they basically were gutting, parts of the Stormcast range, and that models from, a bunch of armies are just going to Legends. And it's like, you do understand it, at least to an extent, when they are really old models from like the fantasy line. Ironically, for Soulblight Gravelords, the fantasy models, all apart from one, which is actually a multi-part kit, which is a Blood Palanquin, Blood Time Palanquin, I think it's called. That one's gone to Legends, and it is in this supplement. But the multi-part kit still supports the other 2, which I think might have been rolled into like one data sheet. I think they said they did that in one of them. But it's just mad that, that they've kept the fantasy stuff in Soulblight and they've discontinued new models, and that it's only taken them less than, I guess 9 years, or maybe just like over 9 years, because it's 3 editions, right? To start removing new stuff that they added from the game since the game's inception. It's like, if you told me it was 20 years, I'd get it, but it's not, and it's not even 10 years.
I suppose this is the thing, though, right? Like, let's think about it logically and try and be like businessy about it. It's probable that when they flummoxed the release of Curse City, they went, oh dearie me, people on the internet don't like us because we didn't do enough Curse City and we botched the release. How what's an easy win? I know, we'll do another print run. They do another print run. It hasn't sold crazy well. every Games Workshop you go in, still got Curse City on the shelf. They're just, you know, probably down to a few thousand units that are mostly situated in physical stores, probably don't have any in the warehouse. And they're thinking to themselves, right, what's the stock situation with Curse City? Oh, it's not a big hit for us. We're waiting until it basically sells out in stores, which it will do eventually. And when that day comes, we're not going to reprint it. We're not restocking it. It's just dead. And then when it's dead, that's it. But then the AOS team are looking at it going, okay, but, you know, we put a lot of this stuff into Soulblight Gravelords in 3rd edition.
To sell
I guess we're just going to have to... Yeah, or just because that was the mandate or whatever. But yeah, now they have to take it out because they know that this Curse City stuff is going away and never coming back again. And,
which is,
you know,
is sort of also mad because it's, I mean, if they want to do a new Warhammer quest, which sort of feels like it's maybe due, then maybe they would want to. But at the same time, Blackstone Fortress is even older and that's still available and being sold. Yeah, the expansions aren't, but the core game's still available to buy. And yeah, in a way, you could argue it's Games Workshop's fault because they put those models into Soulblight Gravelords to begin with. They didn't have to. They could have just sat there and just been cool models for a standalone game, and maybe that's, for whatever reason, the decision that they've now come to. But I sort of feel like I said, they set the standard themselves that they should sort of hold themselves to, and now they're sort of backtracking potentially. But maybe you're right. Maybe they want to get rid of the game, and for some reason have done the decision that they don't want to sell those models individually. Like they retooled the Barrow Guard, the old Grave Guard models, not Grave Guard.
Yeah.
No, it was the genetic Death Rattle skeletons. So they were the new skeletons from Curse City. Basically, they were super fragile and broke. So they retooled it. So they redid the mold. So they're a bit more stronger and they're easier to put together. So they're happy to do that because they know it will sell enough that they will get their money back on it in the long run. But they can't take the designs of those Curse City characters and units that are sort of stuck on one sprue and sort of design a new sprue so they're on their own ones and just sell them as individual units. It's like, that's doable. Games Workshop does that for less and will do that for stuff that is much more time limited, or, you know, Black Library minis and what have you. So it's like, it's not out of the possibility that they could support these things if they wanted to, or just sell them as a sort of, monsters of Curse City box that is for Soulblight Gravelord specific, and it's just the sprues, and it's like the monster and the Bloodborne, I think, all together, like the Vargsky and the bodyguards, and that's like one sprue that you just buy for 60 quid.
To be clear, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I just think they probably look at it and go, we're just gonna, in the same way they don't sell Silver Tower anymore, right? Like, that's gone, right? Now, admittedly, Silver Tower was like 9 years ago, so it's a very different timeline, but, Silver Tower had stuff in it that has never been repeated in Age of Sigmar. There were the spider goblin creatures that were kind of like hybrids between like scuttly goblin things, so like early kind of concepts for how they were going to kind of change the night goblin.
There was, isn't the ogre, the ogroid, isn't he still available?
The ogroid Thermidor, yeah. As is also the not the changeling, what is he actually called? The big Lord Sorcerer geezer.
Yes.
I cannot for the life of me remember. Oh, Gaunt Summoner. There you go. The Gaunt Summoner.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's still available, but other stuff is gone. Like you can't get the Mistweaver. That just disappeared. Like that was like an early indication of a kind of like amalgamation between the old high elf aesthetic with maybe more of a dark elf aesthetic. So that was when they were kind of, mucking around with the ideas of what the elves could be. It was very kind of illuminating around the ideas that they had about what AOS could be, and then obviously what it ended up being. But yeah, they don't sell any of that anymore. So I think this is the thing. As much as I agree with you, I think the problem is the mistake they made. The mistake they made was putting the rules for Cursed City miniatures in the Soulblight Gravelord box in the book in the first place.
Yes, if they were going to do what they're currently doing, but it's odd because it's like you've still got Radicata Beast, you've still got Belladama,
which they plan to sell separately
because they were always from what I gather they were expansion characters for Night Wars and I think Nightmare, which are the two expansions that they did for Cursed City, but they did them without the miniatures. You've got Ratakin, and you've got a bunch of like sort of little vampire characters. They're still all available. Belladama again, she's available because they were just all released separately. So you've got a theme of a sub-faction that you've lent into heavily and is a core part of the identity of sort of like Gravelords now. And then you've just pulled the rug from under it and taken away half the models, which is just a real shame for people that have been collecting it or people like me that have just literally got into it. And, I was looking in like Jan-Feb time, Cursed City was sold out, as was most of the characters. And I suspect that was because people like me on the hype train for the Death Rattle after that was previewed were buying it. So I think loads of people are in an almost worse position than me. I bought Cursed City when it first came out and it's just sat in my loft. Some people would have just bought it and probably, there's a lead time to building and painting stuff. It's like, cool, we've got it for a year for competitive play. But it will take people probably 6 months to build all of those models and get them ready to take to an event. And then they've got 6 months of playing it.
Yeah, which is rough. I think at the end of the day, more needs to be done. But again, I look at this as the same thing as like, when we talked about the Death Watch stuff, I felt like Death Watch are a similar kind of thing where years ago in 7th edition, they released a Death Watch box set of Kill Team, blah, 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 versus Gene Stealers, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did. They released that box set. And that was very similar to this. And what happened is they released that box set and they went, right, well, what is it? It's a Kill Team. It's made up of all this other junk. So it's a bike and a jump pack and a Terminator and a, and they're all in the same unit.
That was Kill Team Cassius.
Yeah. And then what happened was Games Workshop 40k rules writers went, so you can take the whole Kill Team as one squad. And then off the back of that, they basically went, and that's what Death Watch are. That's how it works. That's the Kill Team. And then as they iterated addition to addition, they kept having to carry the baggage of that one decision that someone made back in 7th edition. And it basically lingered until they got to 10th edition, even though it does technically linger now, although, let's be honest, it's very tokenistic and is almost certainly not going to transfer into 11th edition. But essentially what has happened is they finally got to a place where they've gone, all right, cool, we're not supporting Death Watch anymore, but just to try and placate the few people that still care, we are going to give them an index for this edition, but essentially they're going away. It's kind of that situation, right? Like a random box set came out, they chucked it in a codex, and then the ongoing effect of that has led to a point where they've disappointed people because they have had to basically pull the rug out at some point. And that's happened a lot sooner with Soulblight Gravelords than it did with Death Watch, in some ways, that's potentially worse, but in other ways, it's potentially better. The long and short of it is it's just not cool. It's like the problem that Games Workshop has is that because their design philosophy and their, release philosophy has moved away from a sensible synergy between game design, rules writing, IP development, and miniature crafting, modelling, development, because those elements don't synergize anymore and they just churn out miniatures like crazy, it just becomes this thing where a lot more stuff is just getting lost in the shuffle.
That's ultimately their problem. In a way, I would say to Games Workshop, and they wouldn't do this, if you're not going to support it indefinitely, don't put it in AOS, don't put it in 40k. If you're going to do Warcry, Underworlds, and you're going to make cool models for another system, and you're thinking, I'll put it in the codex for this edition and not have it in the next edition, just don't do it. People will be gutted that they can't play it in 40k, but you will annoy more people by removing it from 40k than the people that want to play it in 40k and can't, but ultimately they could if they just were like, I'll just proxy it as a unit or a character or whatever, and that's on them to do. Like, if Ezekiel, the Kado Ezekiel, the vampire, didn't have any rules for AOS, but I was like, I know, he's a cool sculpt from Black Library, I'm just going to buy him as a Vampire Lord, and that Vampire Lord is permanently supported because that's in the codex. That's on me. That's my purchase, and I've made the choice to run him as something else, which is cool. But then there's no fill bads. But I suspect Games Workshop likes to put stuff in the battle tome or the codex because they know it sells more models. Because while I'm able to be like, I'll try and fit it in as this character or as this unit, a lot of other people maybe won't, and they just want to know it has rules as written and everything's there correct, and it's got its own data sheet, and that drives more sales.
Yeah, it really does, mate. It really does, and that's ultimately what they're doing it for, right? Like, but the long-term effect of it is that it does create this lack of trust, and it does create situations like you're having. But then at the same time, how much does that impact the new players and new users, as it were? Do those to the younger people coming into the game right now, do they care about that stuff again? Is it just one of the unfortunate scenarios that we have for just being veterans of the game?
Well, here's the thing: they won't be affected by it until they are. Because eventually,
until they are, absolutely.
Give it another couple of years, the things they would have bought might then no longer be supported, and then it's the repeating rinse and repeat cycle.
It's wild to think though, Phil. Like I never thought we'd see the day, but it's wild to think that we're in a world where, like, Games Workshop could remove the tactical squad from the game and no one would care that much, Though that has taken time, but
because that was, I guess, the most famous Space Marine unit.
They'll just do a Primaris tactical squad, though, right? That's what's coming.
I assume so.
What they'll do is they'll do it in a one-er. They're basically, in fact, actually, hilariously, mad prediction, 11th edition noise. They basically remove intercessors from the game and replace it with a tactical squad.
Well, what I would almost like is sort of a combination of it. So you get your base tactical squad is intercessors. Your heavy weapon option, I guess, unfortunately, is the Desolation Marines. But your special weapon could be your plasma guy. Oh no, your heavy weapon could also be the melter, maybe, like the I'm saying incinerators, but I can't remember what it's actually called.
The eradicators.
And then your specialist weapon could be the plasma or the pie blasters. I guess that's it for the specialist weapon. Or I guess maybe for the heavy weapon you could also have a heavy bolter, because they've done that for the company heroes.
Yeah, the Stone Guard squad as well.
So I suspect maybe if they made the tactical squad the all-stars of the Primaris range, it would sort of work.
Yeah, I think that's probably where they'll go with it, though. But then I don't know. It'll be interesting. But that will be because inevitably at some point it's like when you look at Space Marines, like something's going to have to give sooner or later. But
yeah, I think
we'll
I think with that one it's quite interesting because you say I do think no one will care. You'll lament the loss as the idea of it, but from an actual practicality view of it, I don't think many people are running tactical squads at all, unless you're like some kind of old school veteran player who just for some reason has never gotten into Primaris. And, I'm sure there are people out there who are like, I hate Primaris, I'm just running Firstborn forever. And okay, then you are in a pickle, I guess, if and when that day comes. But I think most people have just embraced Primaris, and because of it, everyone's running Primaris. So actually, even though Primaris had its own problems, it's potentially the correct way of discontinuing units by basically replacing them with something better. And there's been enough of a time period where everyone has transitioned that it isn't an issue.
It's like how they're eventually going to remove flyers from the game as well, because they've essentially consistently made them awful to the point that like no one uses them, and then they're going, and now they're gone, and you'll be like, oh god, I didn't even know they were still here.
Yes, yeah, which is interesting because I would almost put drop pods in that category.
I would agree, but yeah, here we are with new drop pods, and yeah. But anyway, Soglight, interesting. Intrigued to see if they put out an article tomorrow. Yeah. Sure, they might.
One positive note to end on from that
Please,
Soglight,
let's get positive.
Battle Tome supplement is that they've changed the design of the ward saves. I was going to say invuln saves, but in the back of my head I can see Richie give me a sarcastic comment about that they're actually called ward saves. That they've changed the design of it so they're not in the keywords anymore, and that they've added them to the roundel at the top.
Well, that was where they were going with it on the whole, I believe. Like, they think they were saying that, future battle tones.
Yeah, because I remember when I spoke to Matt from the AOS team when I played him at the team event. That was my one criticism, and he was like, "Yeah, don't worry, we're fixing that in the future." So this is it.
But they do still have the ward saves in the keywords.
Oh, as well, they put them.
Yeah, they're in both locations.
I guess because it's the way the rules have been written, they're like a keyword, so they still need to be a keyword.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fine. Like, it's good because it's the immediate, obvious visual representation, and then also in addition to, you have the keyword, which is great.
Yeah, no, it's a marked improvement. Despite I'm not a huge fan of the weird half and half.
The vertical columns.
Vertical data sheets. I
quite like them. I have a few bones to pick with the inconsistency, at least in this particular PDF, of the formatting. So if you look at someone like Torgilius the Chamberlain, and you look at his sheet, you go to his profile, and then they've got like a really thick, bold black line under melee weapon as a box, but they've not carried it across the other four, or rather 5 boxes, so it kind of stops abruptly. Mm-hmm. And then
what melee weapon has a thick?
Yeah, and then when you look at like other things, so like if you go one down and go to Goreslave the Gravekeeper, the black line distinguishing their melee weapon stops abruptly in the middle of nowhere, and then there's just lots of weird.
I wonder if
that's
whatever. I mean, I don't see that personally on mine, but that might be a rendering issue. Yeah.
Oh, it could be a rendering issue. There we go. Well, there's me giving them throwing shade at them.
Yeah, because there are some.
There definitely is a.
Is this the thing where you're zooming in?
They're inconsistent with their borders.
Okay, maybe
they're inconsistent with their borders, my friend. I'm telling you, this is. It's a weirdness. I tell you now. Whoever, built these. I mean, because they look like they're just like, using like one of the Windows kind of like table options, and they're just not being consistent with their. Because like, I mean, all right, if you go to what page is this one? If you go to Vargscry,
Yeah.
and you look at racking talons
Yes.
between hit and wound, what's going on there? Do you see that?
No, there's nothing on mine.
Oh, well, on mine there's a big thick line in between both
Okay,
of them, which
it's
is weird.
a rendering thing then. It's probably because you're on
Oh,
a PC
fine.
and I'm on a Mac.
Oh,
Or
that's
I'm on
what it is. You're on the
my phone, in fact. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Fine. In which case, I would withdraw my grumbles. Let's say goodbye, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Toodle pip.